I'm playing with y'all. I'm playing y'all pseudo. Always the same shit. Pseudo killers. Slide on the pseudo any day of the week. Got them running scared, demonstrating their weak. Turning up the pressure, now they feeling the heat. I'm stopping all these niggas, man, call it a feat. I got my Nike song, I run these YouTube streets. We're racking up the bodies, man, one at a time. I leave a bloody mess at the scene of the crime. Hunting through the blood, I'm always on my grind. Call me singing love, got one thing on my mind. Die, single die, single die, single die. Nowhere to run, you got nowhere to hide. Die, single die, single die, single die. Ain't leaving no shells, don't need no alibi. Die, single die, single die, single die. I can see the fear hiding in your eye. Science is undefeated and we standing tall. Crushing all the scammers, building narrative wall. All that flim flamming, what's wrong with y'all? Swing my battle axe and we watch them fall. I leave them busted, battered and bruised. Crushing fragile egos, they call it abuse. I'm putting belt to ass, it's like you're born to lose. You're about to pop a vessel, about to blow a fuse. Your niggas always flicking, but I'm never confused. I'm hunting through the blood, I'm always on my grind. Call me single love, got one thing on my mind. Die, so die, so die, so die. Nowhere to run, you got nowhere to hide. Die, so die, so die, so die. Ain't leaving no shells, don't need no alibi. Die, so die, so die, so die. I can see the fear hiding in your eye. I see all the hating, it's fine by me. You pseudo laying scammers are my enemies. All the misinformation is a tragedy. Now I'm in the garden pulling up the weeds. Y'all be the sickness like a fucking disease. I'm a pseudo killer nigga, got the remedy. So I do this for fun, completely for free. But watch it through the die, it's joy for me. So I'm always through the hunting, I'm always on the grind. Call me single love, got one thing on my mind. Die, so die, so die, so die. Nowhere to run, you got nowhere to hide. Die, so die, so die, so die. Ain't leaving no shells, don't need no alibi. Die, so die, so die, so die. I can see the fear hiding in your eyes. Y'all just ain't ready to deal with a pseudo killer nigga. You gotta come with all your flim flam, bullshit, narratives, get crushed every time. Stomping on you niggas every time.
Wow. Whoa, so check it out, bro. I was just going through the game clips, man. Earlier, I was on Q Butter's channel, but when I jumped on, it was past the 12-hour mark. So now that is now lost footage. So maybe tomorrow I'm going to touch on some of the things I was bringing up, proving that people don't even know DOPS works. A lot of you guys are just cult followers, don't even know what they actually brought out in their works. So that might be a show for another day. But while in the midst of going over what was talked about earlier, I started looking at Jabari's information, going back, looking at his videos and Sekou, and they had an exchange. I forgot to cover this, where Garfield brought on Cooney on his channel to get an expert per view, if you will, on Egypt as it relates to race, because these guys believe in race. I don't give a damn what they try to do. Oh, we know that race is a social construct. Do you? Because you treat it as a biological connector. What do I mean by this? People like Jabari, Sekou, Smash Blackwell, I knew him as Jonathan. All these people that are Egyptomaniacs and are entrenched in Egyptian beliefs or the idea of being Egyptian, what connects them to Egypt is the fact that they can say, there's black people in Egypt. The conversation stops there, right? That lets me know everything I need to know, that they are race realists. And that's where the issue lies, because you're trying to retroactively put a colonial expression into the dynastic period of Egypt. And once you do that, and try to retroject these terms back there, then you say, these are our people. These are our people because I said they're black and they fit this racial category that exists in the modern day. So therefore that means we are related to one another. And this is just emphatically false. And this is why all of these cults and identitarian groups exist. Black Hebrew Israelites exist because somebody approached them and said, hey, these people were black. And when you heard that, you was like, wait a minute, I'm black, they're black, we're all black, we're the same. And that's the issue. You believe that race is real. You can come out your mouth and say you don't, but that's exactly what's going on in these conversations. It's race realism. And these are the conclusions you come to, because race is about pairing everybody up into these, artificial groups, put them in these groups, and these definitions change on a whim. And then whoever you put in these groups, then they are your people. I've debated several people that believe that Negritos are their people because of how they look, dark skin, wide noses, nasal indexes, morphology, et cetera, et cetera. They believe in these things, and all these things are arbitrary. So what happens is the actual data and evidence, beyond you just pointing out that the Egyptians some of them are having darker skin, beyond you just pointing out that, shows and proves that ancient Egyptians are not related to majority of your ancestors. And that's the people. And the rest of them clowns, Wujahu, the pill that they don't want to swallow is called reality. And that's usually the identitarian's worst nightmare. An Egyptomaniac, a Black Hebrew Israelite, an Afrocentric, your worst nightmare is reality. Because in reality, ancient Egyptians are largely North African and West Asian. North African itself, I had a debate in one all about North African genes, North African ancestry, North African migration. North Africa itself is a sister branch of Eurasians. So that part right there kills you. And then this whole idea that Diop tried to sell you and all these other people tried to sell you, Dr. Bean, the Black Man in the Nile Valley, all these old antiquated books. William Chancellor was invoked today. That was 1972 when that was published. All these old ass books being invoked into the conversations in 2025 is laughable. Laughable. This is why I don't take Keita seriously. Like, this one Unc got upset with me. Keita cannot be taken seriously because when you read his works, he's citing shit from 89 and shit like that. I was like, bro, it's 2025. Come to the modern era. Come to the up-to-date science and scholarship and deal with it from that purview. Because if you're going all the way back, of course, you're going to get all the wackos. Science is weeding out all of these wackos over the years, right? Because of the scientific method. And then we're able to kick these people to the dustbin of history. But cultists and these believers and these followers of these cult leaders don't want to let the lie die. They don't want to let their bad work go into the dustbin of history. They want to continue to reverberate these things and regurgitate these things in 2025. So during this exchange between Jabari, Sekou, and Smash Rockwell and Garfield, Unc and Cooney, Garfield gets the expert Cooney on, right? And Cooney, she believes if there's an exodus that it happened during Merneptah's Egypt. She literally says this. She's in Oxford's History of Egypt. And she literally says this. So I don't know if you really want to go with somebody that says stuff like that, but hey, that's y'all. That's who y'all chose. Maybe she was the only one available. But even in her dialogue, she didn't say anything in support of Jabari. But Jabari and his sued friends, they get on fucking Sarnetta and act as if everything she said was in agreement with them. And she denounced race. She's a little too political for my taste. If we're bringing you on here for your scholarship and history of Egypt and things of that nature, archaeology, anthropology, focus on that. You worried about, the patriarchy this and the patriarchy has made this world evil and all this political mumbo jumbo, man. What the fuck? I don't want to hear this shit. I would have watched CNN if I want to hear a leftist cry, but that's neither here nor there. I felt like she harped on that too strongly. But nonetheless, her purpose was to get on there and discuss these things in regards to Egyptians and race. And every time we do a show on this, we always find out the same goddamn thing. that it's erroneous to try to compare modern concepts of race with how people viewed themselves 3, 4, 5, 6,000 years ago. Dynastic Egypt was about 5,000 years ago when that starts. These people didn't have no idea what the fuck a black person was, what a white person was. They had those concepts were not in their head. They did not think like that. They did not identify like that. You either Egyptian or you one of them niggas. You Libyan, you Amu, you one of them. Right? You Nubian or some shit. It didn't matter how you look. You could be blue, black, you could be white as hell. Now, Cooney did make some statements, and I'm just going over a few things that I remember from the video. She made a few statements that were wrong. The idea of lighter skin coming in after the Bronze Age collapse is wrong. Lighter skin has always been in North Africa, probably going back 8,000, 9,000 years. We know this because we see an influx of people coming in through Northwest Africa, and also an influx of people going through the Levant 6,000, 7,000 years ago. And they're making it as far as Tunisia, right? Northern Libya, Algiers. And when we do the phenotypic analysis of these people, when I say we, I'm not literally saying I'm a part of this. I'm talking about the experts, the people that are involved with exhuming the body, extracting the DNA, and sequencing the genomes, the geneticists. When they did these phenotypic analysis, they saw alleles that are responsible for lighter skin. So the probability of this person being very light is very high, right? Same thing in Northwest Africa. Lighter skin has been in Northwest Africa for a long time, which would explain why Egyptians in the Tomb of Seti looked at Libyans as being quote unquote lighter, or depicted them at the least as being lighter. These light skin pigmentation. And the Tomb of Seti is what, around late 14th century, early 13th century. So the idea that the Bronze Age collapse are things that happened, some people even say the Greek and Ptolemaic period is what made them light. No, lighter skin variants, lighter skin people existed in North Africa as far back as 8,000 to 9,000 years. How do we know this? I'm going to tell you, we don't know about reading Diop because Diop didn't deal with real ancient Egyptian history. He dealt with racial diffusion. That's what he dealt with. His whole purpose of his book, African Civilization, Myth of Reality, was to nail down an argument for the dispersal of all Negro people from dynastic Egypt. That's the whole purpose of that damn book. And you can tell the people that follow Diop today did not read it because they don't even know the argument. When I was on Q Butter's channel, I'm literally just paraphrasing from the book, and they like, and the book don't say that. You lying. You don't even know the book. You don't know the material. But you supporting if anybody says anything negative toward Diop, you get mad. You claim to be an advocate for Diop, but you don't even know what the man taught. The man believed that everybody on the continent of Africa that is a Negro, racist diffusion model, everybody on the continent of Africa that is a Negro is a descendant of a dynastic Nile Valley Egyptian. In the beginning of his book, he says he started his research in 1946, right after the end of the Second World War. And you guys are trying to use his book in 2025. That shit is antiquated. Or you're trying to use him as someone to be of an accredited scholar in 2025. That shit is antiquated, and it's a fairy tale book. You believe in modern myth. See, a lot of you guys are okay with dispelling ancient myth. Like, we've already came to the conclusion, the Torah, ancient myth, right? Quran, ancient myth. All these things are ancient myth, right? We can bring up Buddhism, everything. Ancient myths. Now we have an issue with accepting modern myths. This was made in the 20th century. A modern myth, the idea that somehow everybody that's black in Egypt are somehow Nile Valley Egyptians from the dynastic period. And he even goes even further and says the Yoruba have to be related to Egyptians that were still in Egypt during Roman and Greek contact. So here's the question for all you Dioplites out there, or Diopites. Why the hell are West Africans illiterate until the Islamic expansion. And why we don't see Greek and Latin, because if they're in contact with Greek and Latin people, they should at least be literate enough to write down some symbols, some characters, or something from those language groups. But we don't see that. That could have been challenged and probably was challenged during his era. How are you saying these things? The man said, I began my research in 1946. And we got people in 2025 citing this man or pretending to know what this man says, because I've already proved they don't. Right? Erroneously, as if it's gospel. This is the idiocy. Now we got Jabari and Sekou, which they love Dr. Ben. Oh, Dr. Ben. Now all of a sudden Dr. Ben's wrong. They say it. No, Dr. Ben. Yes, Dr. Ben is emphatically wrong. Which book you want? The Black Man in the Nile, which was published in 1972. You want the book he did on Israel? You want that one? All those books are garbage. Garbage. And they belong in the dustbin of history. But you guys are invoking these people. Crazy. So Jabari and Sekou, they got on Sinetta and tricked the whole audience saying that Cooney was saying the same thing they were saying about this whole race thing. Cooney never made the semblance of words of saying, hey, you African Americans are the ancient Egyptians, or and vice versa. She never came to that conclusion, never said that. There's no writing of her saying that or implying it like you guys. So no, she doesn't fucking agree with Jabari. Jabari, you all over YouTube talking about our ancestor, our great ancestor Imhotep. Nigga, you ain't from no damn Egypt. That's why I always put the axe to the root of the tree. Diop is the root of the tree. This is where they're getting all this shit from. Sued. Very sued. With that, let's get into the first clip. Right, I'm gonna get into the clip with Jabari. Let me put this on the screen so you guys can see the clown show for yourself. Fair use. We are covered under copyright 107 to give our commentary and critiques of the following video. I am going to be speeding this up 1.5. just to get through this material a little quicker.
Just randomly say you're black and you're black and you're black, right? It's a social construct based on phenotype. But the reality is, for literally hundreds of years, they've been saying that black people did nothing worthwhile, that black people were slaves, that black people were not the leaders of state, that black people had nothing to do with mathematics, literature, spirituality, science. And now that we can prove that those people who you have called black did all those things, now you want to say black don't mean nothing.
Exactly.
How does that work? How does that work?
The ultimate moving of the goalpost.
And now we have some people who I think unintentionally are doing the work of their enemies. And that part is it's offensive.
They're doing the work of their enemies. This is all race talk. That's what I'm saying. These guys are race realists. You don't know that, or you act as if race isn't a social construct when you say shit like that. Because when you say their enemies, what he is saying is their enemies are the people on the other side of the racial schema, which are white, right? This is what all these batshit crazy people do on YouTube that are either Afrocentric, claim Kemet, or black Hebrews like the enemy. We know who the enemy is. Every white man, woman, and child, blah, blah. All this crazy shit. The enemy, by saying, and no one ever said black doesn't mean anything. It has it's got a lot of abstract meanings to it. And again, it's all of human convention. It's not reflected in a biological reality. This is why you guys are confused or pretend to be confused about ancient Egyptians. Because when ancient Egyptians are not depicted dark skin or something, I never see you guys highlight that. But you highlight the dark skinned ones because you're stuck on race. You think that means that's you and that they are you, and vice versa. Those are your ancestors. Like Shaka used to sing. And we beat up Shaka too, misappropriating the damn paper, talking about, this says here that the Egyptians come from West Africa. You guys are idiots. It did not say that. It said it came from the western direction of the damn Nile. not fucking Western Africa, Guinea, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Nigeria, Cameroon, you stupid son of a, you know what I want to call you. You know what I'm saying? This is the level of idiocy. But this, in this niche community, this is high scholarship right here. Sonetta, when you on Sonetta, to them, that's the pinnacle. To them, that's Oxford. That's Yale. They made it. They made it. I'm on Sonetta. This is the highest level of scholarship in their mind. And they're saying dumb shit like this. If this is the highest level of scholarship, damn, y'all in trouble. VM.
Offensive. You know, you've probably heard me, we're live so that folks can hear this. You have heard me say several times that when state actors try to get people to do things against their own interest and for their interest without even knowing they're doing that, they call them UIs. Useful idiots. They don't even know that they're working against their own interest.
You're working against your own interest if you point out that ancient Egypt has little to nothing to do with African Americans. That's your own interest. Ancient Egypt ain't our interest. This shit ain't got nothing to do with us. In the present day America, it has little or nothing to do with our ancestors. Again, newsflash, Jabari, we are made up of three major components of ancestors. You, Sonetta, Smash Rockwell, and myself are all descendants, are a composite of West Africans coming from Benin, Togo, Nigeria, Ghana, Angola, Cameroon, places like that, and Western Europeans, the British Isles, Scotland, Ireland, even some Iberian mix in there, France, Germany, places like that. That's where majority of our ancestry comes from. And the third component is some Native American ancestry. So for all the Abo nuts out there, you do have Native American ancestry. It just is not your major component. You got all of these ancestors came together to make you. Without them, you don't exist. Now, notice, I didn't say nothing about no ancient Egyptians, no pharaonic Egyptians, no dynastic Egyptians, because that don't fucking exist. That's not in your damn genome. That's not a part of your ancestry. So self-interest in what way? Egypt literally has shit to do with us. Being an African-American, right there should tell you everything you need to know in regards to Egypt. Egypt has no relation to us at all. So how is it against self-interest? I'm going to tell you what is against self-interest. Making fucking videos like this, influencing people to think like you. That's against self-interest. That's backwards. Because you guys are against academia, you're anti-goddamn science, you do what all the rest of the suits do. You try to find fringe fucking positions. That's why y'all ran the Christopher Ehret. That is fucking fringe. The genetics determine where people come from. The genes do. That tells you what person or what type of people these people descend from. And when we analyze the genes of ancient Egyptians, it is primarily North African and West Asian. The gig is up. You done. You finished. Anyway, let's keep going.
And some of the folks that we're dealing with are clearly in the category of useful idiots.
All right. Woo.
So are you an unuseful idiot? He's going to go into the damn title card real quick. Let me skip that. He goes to the title card.
Expensive and may cause rage. Parental discretion advised.
At Sonetta Studios, we provide experts that dive into the topics that you want to hear. This includes Islam, Christianity, Hebrew Israelite, ancient Egypt, science, history, health, power, local and international events. We are the #1 channel for debating the hottest topics. Our motto is source up or shut up. So strap in and experience Sonetta Studios live on YouTube.
All right, so here we go. Let's start the show. I got Jabari in the building. What's up, Jabari?
Who wrote that?
Their motto is source up or shut up, but they get on here and have these rhetoric battles every fucking video. Every video is a bunch of talking heads throwing out garbage to each other. There is you hardly see presentations. You hardly ever see, oh, let me open up my screen. And even if they did open up their screen, it's always fringe, outdated garbage shit they're sharing. But this is supposed to be the pinnacle of scholarship. Sonetta TV. That and everyone's happy to be. Oh, I'm on Sonetta. I'm being seen. How many videos? How many views this one get? 9.2 thousand. Oh, I made it. 9.2 thousand views. It's the house of the truth. So in this niche community, that's all that matters. I just want to be seen. It doesn't matter about the strength or accuracy of your argument. It's all about viewership. This is what you get. Which I think that's bullshit too, because if it was about viewership, these guys would flock to Modern Debate, the Modern Debate League. They would try to all get on Modern Debate League. It also has a racial component too. Oh no, I only can fuck with my people. I gotta go with my people. Well, you're related to modern day debates. You're related to those white people on modern day debates. You literally are. Oh, but hold on. You can't accept that. But you're gonna pretend to be the relative of Imhotep. You can't accept that, but you're gonna pretend to be the relative of the Scorpion King. This is how silly you niggas are. You can't accept being related to white Americans, but you can fucking make up a damn relationship with somebody that lived 3, 4, 5,000 goddamn years ago in the middle of the fucking Levant or Egypt some damn where. Make this shit make sense. Goofy.
That little piece for you. I like that. It may cause rage.
Yeah. So anyway, here we go. Because so that's what I'm saying. You know, yeah. People get upset, get mad. So I'm just letting them know, giving them a warning. So,
yep, I always get mad when I watch one of these clowns on Sonetta TV, and just do this fomenting shit. It usually makes me upset because you claim to be this high astute scholar, and then you say some of the dumbest shit that you could possibly say.
They didn't know,
I like that.
All right. So go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I think that tonight's conversation is going to be a really interesting one. And first, let me just say peace to the whole Sonetta TV Studios Black News 102 family. I think that tonight's conversation is going to be a really powerful one because we have been fighting in the last few years Black folk, people of African descent, that are arguing against their most learned scholars, arguing against people who have been doing the work for decades. People have traveled to
their most learned scholars, people that travel. Anybody can fucking get on a plane and go travel to a country and go on vacation or go on a goddamn tour. What does that mean? That means zero, zilch, nada to any goddamn body. Who cares? Most learned scholars. Who are your most learned scholars? Dr. Ben, Diop? That's who you got? That's fucking trash. Obanga? You got a clip of Renuka Rashidi on your damn YouTube channel, Jabari. Renuka Rashidi, rest in peace. The nigga is trash. Sued. The nigga claimed all of East Asia was fucking Negro land or some shit. That's supposed to be our most fucking learned? You in fucking trouble. That is some goofy, they're battling our most learned. Most learned my ass.
To the sites, written the books, written the papers, done the work. And they are arguing for the interest of their enemy. And it's absolutely reprehensible that we are here. But the reality is, if someone challenges something that you have been studying, what you do is you respond. And so folks like myself, folks like Smash, folks like Reggie, folks like Asar Imhotep, and others have been responding. We have been responding. And I'm really hoping that folks listen carefully to what is being said on the other side. One of the things that they tried to do so that you won't listen to us is they've tried to say that there's certain people who are experts and there's certain people who are not. That's what they've tried to do. Doesn't matter how much you've studied. Doesn't matter how much you've written. Doesn't matter where you've traveled. Doesn't matter who you studied with. Doesn't matter whether you teach in scholarly settings. You're not an expert. And
check it out. This is his whole tactic. It's what a lot of these dudes do, these preachers. He's a pastor. That's all he is, a goddamn pastor, bro. This is the tactic they use. They open up the show with this. It's called rabble rousing.
Rabble rouser.
And to be a rabble rouser is a person who speaks with the intention of inflaming the emotions of a crowd of people, typically for political reasons. So when he goes in there and says he's working for the enemy, he's against his own interests, that's to incite the emotions of the audience to say, you know what? He's wrong because why would he go against himself? Why he hates black people, blah, blah, blah. Now they not even focused on the damn topic. They focus on these emotional shits that you didn't put out there on the ethernet for everybody to hear. And that's usually a soothe tactic because your damn information ain't strong enough. So now you got to try to turn the crowd against everybody and get them fucking emotional. And you know these people are highly emotional when it comes to race because they fucking race realist them damn selves. So the minute you say they hate black people, it's over. I'm not supporting nobody that hate black people. Stupidity, man.
And they have set up this dichotomy where they are now saying that the only experts are people with Egyptology degrees. That's what they've done. By the way, that even that line moves wherever they want it to, because Richard Carey doesn't.
All right, so check it out. So yeah, I don't make this argument. That's what Unc was saying. The only people that can really talk about this is the experts. We can read the experts, but here's the issue: Jabari has a major issue with Egyptology and Egyptologists because the consensus in Egyptology is completely far different than anything Smash Rockwell or Jabari produces. There's no Egyptologist worth his salt. I'm not talking about fringe motherfuckers, worth his salt, that will get on fucking on camera and say some of the most ridiculous things I've heard Smash Rockwell say and Jabari say. Now, I know Smash Rockwell when he was Jonathan, claiming that Negroes came from Egypt and all type of garbage. This nigga's a Diopite. Same thing with Jabari. He literally believes that his ancestors came from ancient Egypt, that he shares ancestry with Imhotep, the Scorpion King, King Tut. They brought up Asar. Asar literally did a whole goddamn presentation saying that, Ramesses II had 100 children. We could be one of the children of one of the descendants of Ramesses II. He literally said this shit. These are identitarians, not fucking scholars. You guys are so enamored by ancient Egypt and the race idea that you're trying to make it your ancestry. You're trying to make everything about the dynastic Egyptians your ancestors. Oh, Shep said our great ancestors. Do me a favor. Go play in traffic because that's garbage. Go work for waste management or something, man. We see right past that.
Doesn't have an Egyptology degree. Anyway, but know that what they've done is they've made these really, really strange lines that they've painted, and those lines continue to fall apart. They continue to move goalposts while everyone is watching. You got two dudes lifting up out the ground and moving, and everyone sees it. Everyone sees it. And so I was actually in comedic ascension this Sunday, and my phone started buzzing. Bzz, 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 bzz. In fact, someone in comedic ascension said, Jabari, I know you're in comedic ascension, but as soon as you finish, you have to look at the conversation that Garfield and Ankh are having with Dr. Karakuni. I'm familiar with her work, but I really wondered what the conversation would look like. As soon as I was done, by the time I was done, I had 4 more people saying, you have to watch this, Jabari. So as I looked at it, I was stunned to see them. They've propped up people who have degrees. By the way, you don't see them talking to the black folks that have degrees in these fields. They've propped up.
Woo!
That was another rabble-rousing point. You don't see Garfield and Unc talking to the black people. Yes, they fucking do, you fucking idiot. That nigga had Soy Keto on there and shit. Shut the fuck up. This is that goofy. This is why I cuss so goddamn. Why he cuss like that? Why he talk like you got a foul mouth? You would be too if you grew up and was around these motherfuckers for 10 plus years. You would be saying the same shit I'm saying. Because you've seen this same play over and over again. Rabble rouse, hit with more pseudo information, rabble rouse. This lie on people, they don't have black people again to get everybody in their emotions. They don't support black scholarship over there. No, they try to support the most correct scholarship to them, right? I don't agree with Unc on a lot of shit because Unc, I still think he's still holding on to pseudo beliefs, but that's just me. You understand? But the flat out lie and say they don't have no black scholars come over there. When I did see Soy Keto, and I don't agree with Soy Keto too. Soy Keto get a lot of shit wrong. And the reason why he get it wrong is because he's trying to buck up against the goddamn consensus. Well, a lot of you guys do any damn way. With that being stated, I ain't with the line on people, man. You lied. They do have black scholars on their channels. And I know for a fact Garfield had a black scholar on his channel because the person who wrote The Soul of Judaism, right? I can't think of his name right now. He's obviously, ostensibly, what we would call a black person. He's been on the channel. So that was just garbage. Man, we only look for white folks. And then if they do go for white folks, why does that even matter? It matters to them because they believe in immutable characteristics. This is all about race realism. They believe people are born a certain damn way, or if people are in the category white, then they have these traits that go along with it that are immutable. Like, I don't know, lying. That's why you think it's not, they only go to white people, they never go to black scholars. It's because you believe that some way, if you use a white scholar, then they must be lying or some shit. You either believe it or you know people in the crowd believe it. So, you know some people in the crowd talk about, they only go, we know white people lying. They be lying about everything. Shut up, man. These are the parlor tricks, man.
And they pretended that the only people you should listen to are people with doctorates, people with degrees. Now, I want to be clear. Neither of them have degrees that can match with mine. Neither of them have traveled to the locations.
Shut the fuck up, bro. I'm trying not to cuss no more because I cuss. Two people left. I'm going to be prophesying to the wind here in a minute. All y'all going to leave. It's okay. I prophesy to the motherfucking wind. But Jabari, you have a master's in divinity. Please shut up talking about your fucking credentials. You literally have a master's in divinity. You don't got no damn Egyptologist degree, no archaeologist degree. You ain't got no degree in anthropology. You got a degree in the master's in divinity. Please shut the fuck up. Be quiet. Niggas be talking that degree shit, be having a degree in bullshit. Are you serious? None of the degrees match mine. What? A bachelor's in chemistry defeat that shit. I might give a damn about no damn masters of divinity. Why would you even get? Let me just show y'all what he got a degree in. And I just learned this too. Because Dr. Inky exposed this. I didn't even know that that's what he had his degree in. Let me see. Divinity. Let me show you what this is. A Master's of Divinity is a professional graduate degree focused on theology and ministry, typically taking 3 to 4 years to complete. So it's basically the same amount of time it takes for you to get a damn bachelor's in a regular degree as how long it takes you to get a damn master's in divinity. This is what he has. It prepares individuals for roles such as a pastor, chaplain, or missionary and provides the necessary education for further doctoral studies. Look at this shit, bro. This is what he got his degree in. And he talking about they don't even have a degree that matches mine. Everybody that's a degree holder, almost everybody that's in STEM has a degree that's way above yours. No one gives a damn about a damn degree that makes you a pastor, chaplain, missionary, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't get too far ahead of you. Right? No one cares about that. Who cares about that? We got to start making these dudes tell us what they got their degree in. We had somebody talking about, I got my degree. It was in hypnotherapy. Please be quiet. We're talking about history, anthropology, and archaeology and genetics, and you telling me you got a degree in hypnotherapy? Shut up talking to me, man. I don't have the temperance to deal with these dudes like y'all be dealing with them, because this is garbage. The first time he would have said that to me, what do you have a degree in, Jabari? If you cannot tell me what you got a degree in, do not invoke it again. We over talking about ancient Egypt, and you talking about I got a degree in what? Divinity. Please go jump off a bridge.
Done study tours in these regions. If I'm not supposed to be able to talk, they shouldn't even be able to be in the chat room with their credentials.
Teach.
But the thing that is so bizarre about this is that they persist. So what did they do on Sunday? They brought Dr. Karakuni, a woman of European descent, who has an Egyptology degree, and I know they assumed that she was going to do what they always do. They sit there and they constantly berate our community. They act like we're not intellectual. They act like we haven't done a study. They speak down to our community. And instead of agreeing, Dr. Karakuni politely said everything that Jabari has been saying, everything that Smash has been saying, everything that Reggie has been saying.
That's a lie. All three of y'all on camera saying things that she wouldn't be caught red-handed saying. Smash Rockwell is a Diapai. He believes that, you know, there's a connection between Black Americans and Egyptians. Reggie made a damn video talking about Negroes here, there, and everywhere, basically saying North Africa, the entirety of North Africa was Negroid before the Islamic invaders, his words, not mine, invaders came in. And Jabari, you're in the same fucking boat. You believe the same shit. You believe you an ancient Egyptian. You believe Black Americans are ancient Egyptians. She never said anything of the sort. She would never say no dumb shit like that. You are an idiot, and that's where we're gonna keep it at. With your masters in divinity.
In their face. And sometimes when she would say something disagrees with them, they would just go off camera. They just go off camera. Or she would say something where 9/10 of what she said is what we've been saying, and 1/10 is something similar to something they've been saying. They'd be like, wow, I don't think anybody's listening. Listen to the 1/10. And it's like, wait a minute. She said all this stuff that makes you seem foolish, and you want to talk about that?
We don't deal with it.
So what we have to do now, and this is something that you have seen Jabari do 80 trillion times. Let's kill them with their own sources.
Uh-oh.
In this instance, we're going to kill them with clips from their own interview.
Yeah.
From their own interview. And you know what? Some people that were listening, because I've been all up and in the chat on that interview. I don't look at Garfield's videos that often anymore, but this one, everybody said, Jabari, you got to go see it. One of my followers in the shrine said, don't go see it tomorrow. When you finish here, take off your stole, change your clothes, and go watch it. That's what he said to me. He said, don't wait. I don't care if you have lunch, dinner with anybody else. Tell them to wait. You got to look at the interview because you will see them fall directly on their face.
They fell on their face, right? So let's go look what Cooney said before they give you the Negro version. Right, that's what I'm gonna call it, the Negro version. They gonna remix it and put their own fucking spin on the shit she said. We're gonna listen to what this woman said. And again, I am not a Dr. Cooney advocate. I don't agree with some of the things she says. I don't like her overly attacking the patriarchy. No one clicked this video thinking they were gonna get a video, you know, synopsis of the patriarchy and why it's bad, but she just spent so much time talking about that shit. So here's the video that he's referencing here. You guys should see here. Uncle Garfield with Dr. Karakuni, Ancient Egypt, Race and Ethnicity. And she basically just breaks it down that race is a colonial concept, but these niggas ain't telling you that it's just a purely colonial concept. They're using race as a mechanism. They're using race as a fucking mechanism to connect themselves to ancient Egypt. That's how they're using it. A biological connector. That's what makes them race realists. And they don't even understand that.
Hey, peace and love, ladies and gentlemen. Here, welcome to another episode of Greatness of Scholarship, showing the great works of what academia has produced. Today, I got the great Dr. Karakuni, Egyptologist. Great person. You're talking about a person who's qualified. She's a professor currently of Egyptology at UCLA and chair of the Department of Near Eastern Languages and Cultures. She specializes in social history, gender studies, and economies in the ancient world. She received her PhD in Egyptology from Johns Hopkins University. Her popular books include The Woman Who Would Be King, Hatshepsut's Rise to Power in Ancient Egypt, When Women Ruled the World, Six Queens of Egypt, and The God Kings. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I present to you none other than Dr. Karakuni. How are you doing today, sis?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Brother Garfield. It's lovely to be on the show.
All right. And up next, of course, the person who brought me into the community, who recognized me as someone who do a lot of research and himself, and he's been doing this for over 15 years, presenting to everybody. You already know he calls himself the God Killer, but he's known as Unquest in the community. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing? How you doing, Kyra? How you feeling? How both y'all feeling?
I'm great, man. I'm in the company of greatness. So, hey, before we move on, I want to say, Dr. Karakuni, you're well admired in this community. Everybody likes you. There's no one that does not say, hey, I don't like Dr. Kara. Everybody likes you, but they might like you for the wrong, or some for the right reason, and in my opinion, some for the wrong reason. But at the end of the day, they all like you.
Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it and see if they like me for the right or wrong.
Yes, this month I have a few scholars coming in. I got Dr. Manfred Vitak, I got Dr. Jonathan Shorsh, I got Dr. Richard Carrier, I got a whole Dr. Bruce Haynes, I got a bunch of different scholars. I even have a Greek specialist breaking down the words melankros, black, and all that stuff in ancient Greek, trying to give us a better understanding in the community.
So interesting.
So for February, we're doing a lot. And one of the controversies about that's going on in the community for the past 3 years, I've lost many friends over this conversation, and my brother is beefing with some of his best friends. The whole thing about who were the ancient Egyptians? Were they black? Should we call them black like we call black today? As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me take a step back. I'm gonna allow my brother to answer this question because he specializes in this era better than I do. But my brother, how would you answer this question that's going on in the community right now?
Well, first of all, I specialize in deferring to the experts. That's really my specialty. Let's get that straight. Yeah, I'm just a guy that picked up some books and started to understand academia. But for me, once I realized after the human genome was mapped out, I think 2003, and I started to recognize the social construct, how race is a social construct, I started looking at things a little bit differently. And skin color is not a good indicator of ethnicity. I learned that too. And so when I looked at the Nile Valley, and my conversation was they actually African? It never was they black? So now when I see like the Boston Museum and the Brooklyn Museum, I finally see it. They say, well, they're indigenous Africans. So what do you say that is it better to classify them as indigenous Africans, right? We know they.
Everyone's gearing up for the holidays.
You know, you got Nubia, Levant, all those areas, right? Or is it better to call them black? I personally feel like my argument is that they are indigenous Africans, ranging in skin color, has nothing to do with being mixed, because Homo sapiens sapien is the mix. So for you, in this conversation, you the tiebreaker. I want you to know that the pressure is on.
Don't do that to Dr. Gucci.
I gotta put it on the sheet. I gotta do it. So what is it? What is better when we're dealing with academia? What term is better?
So
Indigenous African or black?
I'm going to go with African, first of all, but
Okay.
there's some things to set up. And just so if your listeners want to do some extra research, I have a colleague, African-American colleague, Shamarka Keita, who's written in a volume that I edited called Ancient Egyptian Society. And it's a paperback with Routledge. It's not too expensive, but you can get it at your library too. I think it's like, $30-something. It's not the end of the world, but he's got an article in here, and it is called Ancient Egyptian Origins and Identity. And he breaks down he's a medical doctor and a PhD in Egyptology. So that's a bit of a unicorn, right? He lives in Washington, D.C., and he breaks down the idea of what is race, what is ethnicity, what is skin color, what word should we use, and how should this actually work? And I've learned a lot from him about how we should be talking about these things, or can talk about these things, and what kinds of things are possible to discuss in the ancient world. But let me start out with something that I think is super important. And one reason that when this is discussed in social media, native Egyptians lose their minds and get really upset. Have you noticed this?
Yes.
So number one, the word black in Arabic, and everyone in North Africa is speaking Arabic, right? Because of elite replacement and the Arab conquest, if you want to call it that, of the 7th and 8th centuries. They might be speaking French. That's another occupation and another conquest. But North Africa is a place where Arabic is spoken alongside Chadic and Berber and things like that. In Arabic, the word black has not been radically reclaimed by people. It is a negative word. It is a word with stereotypes of servility and slavery attached to it that is a problematic word. Nobody wants to be called black like they do here. So here, we're now capitalizing the word black, and we're talking about black culture in a very positive way. This is not something that you're going to see in North Africa. You might see it in Central and Southern Africa, but you're not going to see it in North Africa and Arabic, right?
Okay.
So the way the word is perceived in Arabic is in a hyper negative way, as if you're putting somebody down. It's very problematic. That's problematic in and of itself, but start with that, right?
Okay.
Now then attach that to the United States understanding of blackness, in which people were brought against their will in large numbers to act as unpaid labor to found the country of the United States of America with their bodies. Yes. And that way of separating populations and saying these people are enslaved and these people own them, or these people are, the population was separated in such a way that we created things, very cruel social systems in the United States, like the one drop rule, with which both of you and everybody listening is very familiar, that you just need one small part of being black and then you're all black,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Now you go and talk to an African person, particularly a North African person, and you say, oh, are these people black? And they'll be like, well, first, we don't like that word, and please don't use that word. This whole black thing, we don't, it's a very problematic word, post-colonial in particular. And second, they'll be like, what you guys are calling black is not what we call black. And because if anyone is mixed race, which I think is a term we might apply to many Black Americans, people of African descent in the United States, or I know Jamaica is also a homeland, and there you might have mixed race people. And then a North African would actually understand that better, but would not apply the word black to it. So there's so many misfires and miscommunications between a Black American community and a North African community, such that, and I'll add to this, the very problematics of what patriarchy does when it tries to claim a culture. When patriarchy goes in and tries to claim a culture, they say, oh, Egypt is all black, or Egypt is all this or that. And those patriarchal claims, those more old school 1970s, 1980s Afrocentric claims do not go over well in Egypt, because then Egyptians, and you can go into social media and see people lose their minds, are like, they're stealing our culture. How dare they steal our culture? This is effective.
Did you hear what she said? How is that remotely close to anything that a Smash Rockwell, a Jabari, or Dr. Reggie would capitulate? How is that even close to anything y'all were saying? Basically, she broke it down that it's a colonial invention to call people black. She blamed the patriarchy, saying that's a very patriarchal thing to sit up here and try to say ancient Egypt was all black, that the Afrocentric view would have issues in North Africa, because what North Africans see on a day-to-day basis is seeing the population is a mixture of groups of people, and they would not call these people black. And that includes the ancient Egyptians, by the way. How in the hell did you watch this and you came to the goddamn conclusion? You guys are dogmatists, man. Doctrinaires. Because you watched this and turned your blinders on and imagine that she agreed with you, because nothing she said here in this dialogue thus far is in agreement with Jabari, in agreement with Rock Smashwell, or Reggie. All you guys are fucking suits. All of y'all.
Culture. And so if one coming from the African American perspective could understand the charged word black in Arabic, that would be helpful. And if they could understand that imposing a post-colonial one-drop rule that is created in America is a very American chattel slavery created thing, then I think there would be better communication between both sides. Because my answer...
You said the Afrocentrics are imposing a one-drop rule for North Africans. They're imposing one-drop rule shit. Which I just won my debate a couple weeks ago against Pan on Is Race Real? And that was one of my questions to him. Is the one-drop rule accurate? And he said no. That was the end of the beginning of the end. As soon as he said no, you already know what's going to follow up with it. Why is it? Why is it not accurate? And then the whole concept of race just withers around the edges from there. So no, nothing she said was in agreement or concordant with anything Jabari then believe. And I've been watching these trash bins for years. They've been making spurious claims for years about how African Americans are somehow connected to the Egyptians. And this connection is drawn upon the simple fact that you see some dark images on the damn wall. So therefore, that means I'm black, they black, we all black. That's it. I'm black, y'all. I'm black, y'all. That's the whole motherfucking methodology. That's the methodology employed by Diop. That's the methodology employed by Dr. Ben. And she even brought up that a lot of this stuff came out in the 70s and the 80s. She was specifically attacking the Afrocentric authors that even invented and brought this thing into the forefront. But somehow, Jabari said they agree with us. He agreed with us. Did she agree with us? What in the hell?
If I'm going to go back in time, get in a time machine, and answer your question for you, which is, were the ancient Egyptians black? I would say, with the definition of black, and we use the word African, I mean, all ancient Egyptians are African, but Egypt is a confusing place because it is on the crossroads of three worlds: the African world, the Mediterranean world, and the Levantine West Asian world. And Egypt is there for people to cross the Sinai and go from West Asia to North Africa. Egypt is there on the Mediterranean for people to connect from Greece and the Italian peninsula and beyond into Egypt. And Egypt is there in Africa to connect with the rest of that massive, biggest continent that we have on planet Earth.
Is there anything she said thus far that's in agreement with any of these niggas? With Jabari and Co? Are they going to sit there and explain to y'all that it's a crossroad? It's right there, Southwest Asia, Mediterranean, Greeks. Are they going to say anything like that? No, because that kills their whole thing. Because you got Jabari saying, oh, the Tamahu are the white Europeans. The Tamahu are Libyans. Shut up. Anti-science and anti-education. Sir, don't ever bring up no goddamn degree to nobody. Don't tell nobody you got a degree. Just pretend you don't have one. Because the idiocy that you say, you're going to diminish the worth of any goddamn degree. And then you got a damn master's in divinity. That's just side. Let's segue to that real quick. Let's segue to this. Because this is what Inky put us on game on this one. And Inky, you were sued too. You were super sued too. But you put us on game on this one. I didn't even know this.
Move on from the Kemetic tradition and start to follow like Madame Blavatsky or like the chakra. Like, what made you get into that? I heard you make the comment that there are many people who believe that that actually are following Madame Blavatsky in our community. And chakras, and I thought that those comments were ridiculous. I've been in the Kemetic community for over 30 years. I'm a high priest in the Kemetic community. I run a spiritual institution in the Kemetic community with hundreds of followers. And no one is following Madame Blavatsky. That is Christian apologist propaganda. No one is following Madame Blavatsky. The overwhelming number of people in the Kemetic tradition who are extremely well read have never even read Madame Blavatsky. So I think that one of the reasons why people say those things is because they are not reading Kemetic text. And so they believe that the things that we are doing have no basis in the Kemetic tradition. And so they say it must come from someplace else. And they go to Madame Blavatsky, they go to Gerald Massey, they go to all different folks trying to say that people of African descent are following European ideas, European ideas, European ideas, European ideas. That's what they try to do. But none of that is true. I want to be clear that we're not, I would love to know why you think that people in the Kemetic tradition are following Madame Blavatsky. Where did you get that from? And in order to source that, have you ever read any of Madame Blavatsky's work?
Yeah.
What did you read?
Hold on. Sock, can you hit the share screen real quick?
Watch this, y'all.
Share yet.
Watch what he puts on the screen. I'm trying to blow this up. You're gonna see it here. He's gonna pull up his credentials.
Jabari?
It's my name.
Right. So this is the source right here.
What source?
The source for you studying Madame Blavatsky tradition of chakras.
Do you see Madame Blavatsky in there?
So I want to point out that this is his credentials here. He has a Master of Divinity. It says Jabari has studied ancient Africa for 30 years, focusing primarily on ancient Kemetic history, spirituality. But Osase has led annual study tours to Egypt. This is from his website, right? Study tours to Egypt since 2002, the Metropolitan, blah, blah, blah. But he had his master's degree is in divinity. He's a master of divinity. Like, this is a joke. This is a joke. So when he cited earlier and invoked earlier, oh, I have a degree. None of their degrees touch mine. You have a joke degree. You got a bullshit ass degree.
No, but
do you see anything about the chakras in there?
Of course.
You do? Where?
No. Go back, because he's about to show the founder of the college that he went to was Madame Blavatsky. But I want to go back to something. So he also has an additional degree here. Where is it at here? In human services. He said he obtained his bachelor's of science degree in human services and Africana studies from Cornell University, and his master's of science degree from the Metropolitan College in New York. Right? Master of fucking divinity. Boy, you can't make this shit up, man. You niggas get on here and get the woofing and talking all this shit. Anyway, that's from his main website. Y'all can find that. He pulled that up. I had no idea that this nigga had a master's of divinity. Anyway, back to the point here. So nothing she said is congruent with what thus far with anything these dingbats have said.
Sure. And so there's a lot of mixing. So when people get into Egypt, are they African? Well, they're African now because they're there. But it means that throughout the thousands of years that Egypt has been considered a state, or before you had a state in Egypt, you already had a tremendous amount of mixing between peoples of different ethnic backgrounds, different genetic codes, just a lot of mixing. That's why Egyptian people are so beautiful, because heterogeneity is shown to make a more symmetrical face. But it's just.
She's saying that the ancient Egyptians are mixed. She's not saying. Remember earlier, she says she thinks the whole idea of trying to say they're all black is a patriarchal concept. That's what she says. She harps on the patriarch. But that's what she says. She condemns that. She condemns what Smashwell does, what Jabari does, or what Reggie does. Because Reggie believes that Negroes here, Negroes there, and everywhere. He had a whole presentation about it. He believes that. They were all black. They were all this. Our people. We got to defend our people. We got to take back our history. That's how they talk. They always use the word our.
Just a lot of mixture. And then one could ask the question, did the ancient Egyptian phenotype of skin color, which seems to be something people are very interested in, change through time? And the answer would, of course, be yes, because Egypt is occupied so many times after the Bronze Age by different types of people, starting with the Bronze Age collapse. And you get all these sea peoples coming in from across the Mediterranean, northern Mediterranean, Greek mainland, places like that. You're going to make Egyptian lighter, at least in the north, but probably in the south too. And then you're going to get an invasion from, or an occupation from Ptolemaic peoples in the 3rd and 4th centuries. That is going to make BC, you make Egyptian lighter in a sense. And then you're going to get the Arab invasion, and you're going to have that occupation from West Asia. You're just going to bring in another admixture. You're not like changing the population, but you are creating a different mixture within the population. And how you track that, I mean, good luck with genetic tests. But that was a lot. That was a lot. So I'll throw it back to you guys, and you can.
If I may, that point you made is very important about the population remaining. So in your professional opinion, you feel population really hasn't turned over, but it has mixed?
It has mixed, and there was a study that National Geographic did in the 2000s, and you can't find it online anymore. They removed it. This is so hot that National Geographic is like, take that study down. So you can find articles. I know you can find articles about the study, but you can't find the study. But the articles about the study say that they collected genetic information from living Egyptians in Egypt and compared it to what they have of ancient genetic information, and said, and this is a very rough number, that 70% of the people living in Egypt currently have.
We're challenging the standard of what
I hate that they get a damn commercial right.
Very strong genetic connections to ancient Egyptian genomes. 30% addition and change. How you quantify that? Is it within each person? Is it?
So modern Egyptians, according to Karakuni, are largely related to ancient Egyptians. Now, all these clowns will tell you that majority of Egyptians today are the result of invasions. That's what these clowns will tell you. But Karakuni sit up here, even though she wasn't wrong on a few points, and that's because she's not a geneticist. She was wrong on the point of, the Bronze Age collapse, bringing in lighter skin or getting lighter. No, North Africa was, in general, was already light at this point because you got people coming in with these alleles thousands and thousands of years ago, coming in from Europe and coming into Levant. And they already had the lighter skin alleles, so our timing is off. Also, migrations from sub-Saharan Africa. In ancient Egypt, there are very small substratum of sub-Saharan African DNA. It does not have anything indicative of a large influx. And the reason why that's the case, well, we got a recent paper on this. We can clearly see that these people, even in the Green Saharan period, were still in their own respective zones. And there was no great mediation a great migration of groups. Even during the Green Sahara. And we know this is because we found those 2 girls buried in Takakori, the Takakori cave. So when we go to the discussion, let me pull this up real quick. Here's the paper. Ancient DNA from the Green Sahara reveals ancestral North African lineage. It says, our research offered insight into the ancestry of the previously published Tafra hunter-gatherers. While a previous study could not ascribe the sub-Saharan component in the Tafra genome, we now identify the ancestry as a deep North African lineage, with higher proportions found in Saharan Takakori individuals. This refines an earlier model which proposed a dual admixture of Natufian and broadly sub-Saharan African ancestries. Our updated model suggests that the Tafra ancestry comprised a 60% contribution from a Natufian-like Levantine-like population, and this is what North African ancestry is. It's Levantine-like ancestry in general. Anyway, with remaining 40% derived from Takakori-like ancestral North African population. Notably, both late Pleistocene Tafra and mid-Holocene Takakori individuals demonstrate equally distant relationships with sub-Saharan African lineages, meaning these 2 ancient groups, the ancient North African groups and the Tafra, are distantly related to sub-Saharan Africans, not closely related, meaning they're not basically, they were not in close proximity, to these people during their epochs of time living here on Earth. Because if they were, they wasn't mixing. So we don't see any relationship, any close relationship with these peoples. Right? And the reason why, I'll get back, I hate that I accidentally hit that button. Hold on. Let me get it right here. Here it is, right here. So here it is. And the reason why, because these people were separate from each other. That's this bottom line of it. Separate. They were separate from each other. It says notably, both the late Pleistocene Tafra and the mid-Holocene Takakori individuals demonstrate equally distant relationships with sub-Saharan African lineages. This pattern suggests that no substantial genetic exchanges across the Green Sahara occurred during the African human period or other human periods preceding the later Pleistocene. So this right here is this is going to be the problem. So the Sahara spanning around 9 million kilometers squared in housing diverse biomes such as grasslands, wetlands, woodlands, lakes, mountains, and savannas probably saw fragmented habitats impacting human gene flow. These ecological barriers combined with social and cultural barriers, spatial structuring of populations, and the selective adoption of specific practices may have facilitated the widespread dissemination of similar archaeological features while limiting extensive genetic admixture. Now, this is what the paper said. This paper just came out in 2025. And a lot of these motherfuckers ran to this paper thinking it was going to help their cause with Egypt, and it actually made the Egyptian conversation even farther away from African Americans and West Africans and Sub-Saharan Africans in general. There is no link between these people. There's small substratum, but majority of the people's DNA of North Africa have been Eurasian-like, North African-like, and y'all can't take it. Y'all can't stand it. That's why 2 of y'all just clicked off the video. You can't stand it because your idea of ancient Egypt does not match with the goddamn bodies found in the ground. Let's go back.
The different populations, I'm sure it's a mixture of both, but you know, it means that every population changes. Nothing will stay pure. My husband is half Ainu, indigenous Japanese. There aren't any pure Ainu left. If he grew up in Hawaii, there aren't any pure indigenous Hawaiians left. What does it mean to find a pure?
It doesn't mean, look, check it. Everybody that's been watching so far, has she said anything in agreement to smash Rockwell or Reggie? Nothing. Nothing is in agreement to smash Rockwell or Reggie or Jabari. Nothing thus far. They're not going to explain to you that the ancient Egyptians were a mixture of people. They're not going to even tell you what that mixture is. And I had a whole debate. I have my debate here. Here's my debate. I'm going to show you guys real quick. I'm going to slideshow. And we're going to go to presenter view, right? You guys, let me make sure you guys can see this. This was my presentation. This was my presentation. I gave the timeline, broke down when the dynastic period, and it's very important to know when the dynastic period begins and when it ends. We broke down the Stone Age. We were discussing that. Basically, this first slide just kills everything, right? Because the whole idea is that, ancient Egypt dynastic Egypt was started by people moving from the south up into Egypt and then migrating. And then that's why they go to Christopher Aird. Oh, Christopher Aird says it. Christopher Aird is he's fringe and he's not a geneticist. Anyway, ancient Egyptians are the surrogates of non-African DNA. This is the issue you guys are going to always run into. You're always going to run into this. How do we know that they're surrogates of non-African DNA for these African populations below? We actually see the opposite with the genetic evidence. We don't see sub-Saharan African DNA moving in droves going from the south to the north, which is something we should fucking expect if ancient Egyptians were literally coming from the south. We don't see that. We see non-African DNA being disseminated from the north to the south. So, from the paper Social Stratification Without Genetic Differentiation at the Site of Kulubnarti in the Christian Period Nubia, Sirac et al., 2021, it says, we find that the only fitting model is one using Levant, Bronze Age, Iron Age as a source. What is this fitting model? This is the fitting model for the Kulubnarti findings, people in the Christian period of Nubia, right? So the source ancestry for these Nubians are coming from the Bronze Age Levant or Iron Age Levant. And it says, we estimate that the Kulubnarti Nubians had 57.5 plus or minus 0.3% West Eurasian related ancestry. Ultimately, most like that found in Bronze or Iron Age people from the Levant. Although this ancestry was likely introduced to Nubia through ancient Egyptians or a group related to them. So Egyptians pushing southward, as they push southward, they mix with the local population. And that's why we have Sudanese people with West Eurasian DNA. because Egyptians themselves had West Eurasian DNA. That's what the DNA is showing us. Now we can listen to Diop and read Diop's fucking spoof book 1,000 times over. It's not going to change the genetic sequencing and the ancestry of these people. The ancestry of these people literally come from the Iron Age and Bronze Age Levant. Ancient Egyptians' West Eurasian DNA exemplifies African discontinuity, because we were having an argument about African continuity, but using Egypt. And just like Cooney said, we see a discontinuity here because of all of the mixing, right? Same paper says, leveraging previously published genome-wide data from 3 ancient Egyptians, we show that the West Eurasian-related ancestry detected at Kulubnari was plausibly introduced via people from Egypt who harbored a majority of Western Eurasian-related ancestry and a minor proportion of Nilotic-related ancestry. See, these people had small substratum of sub-Saharan African ancestry. Majority of their ancestry was Western Eurasian. This flies in the face of a Jabari, a Smash Rockwell, or Dr. Reggie. And Dr. Reggie got upset about the DNA findings, because every time we talk about DNA in regards to ancient Egypt, it's always non-sub-Saharan African. It's always West Eurasian related, which flies in the face of Diop, because Diop said Egypt, the Nile Valley, dynastic Egypt, is pretty much the father of all Negro Africans. He literally was saying it. I'm paraphrasing. They all dispersed from the Nile Valley during the dynastic time period. Towards the end of the dynastic time period. That's what Diop teaches. Hence, he says the Yoruba were there during the Greek and Roman periods, and he says that's how they got the Horus. They implemented Horus into their deities. Come on, man. This is Fugazi. Again, so Egyptians, they harbored a majority of Western Eurasian-related ancestry. The introduction of Western Eurasian-related ancestry through Egypt is consistent with archaeological evidence of connections between Egypt and the Levant established by the first half of the 4th millennium BCE. When is the 4th millennium BCE? We're talking 6,000 years ago. This is before dynastic Egypt even begins. Because dynastic Egypt, it becomes a thing around 5,000 years ago. This is why these guys don't want to have a discussion about this. They don't want to have, they want to talk about, oh, this black. Just focus on them being black. No, let's deal with their ancestry, because you're claiming to be connected to them. And how do we claim biological connectedness with anybody? Through DNA. So Egypt, as we have tested in the archaeological record, we see things like lapis lazuli. We know that comes from Afghanistan. The potter's wheel comes from Mesopotamia. We can go on and on and on about goats. Goats come from the Levant. They do not come from Egypt. They're not indigenous. Caprine, sheep, and goats, all of that comes from the Levant. And since they're animal domesticates, then they require people to domesticate them with the know-how that's from their indigenous habitat. So they bring that know-how with them, and they bring their genes. They have sex with the people. They produce children, and these become your dynastic Egyptians. This is the issue y'all going to keep having. These people have been vasculating these two regions for thousands of years, going in and out the Levant, in and out the Levant. Anyway. It says between Egypt and Levant established by the first half of the 4th millennium BCE. Again, bringing up EM78, E1B1B, one of the main haplogroups of this. This is from early back to Africa migration to the Horn of Africa. Jason A. Hodgson et al. 2014. And it basically postulates that EM78 originated in northeastern Africa around 19,000 years ago. With a descendant lineage EV32 unique to the Horn of Africa that arrived by at least 6,000 years ago. And it says, because Northern African populations in this time frame are inferred to have substantial non-African DNA, non-African ancestry, the expansion of south of EM78 could have introduced non-African ancestry into the Horn of Africa prior to 6,000 years ago. There you have it. And this is why they run from the data. All these cowards run from the data. They don't want to have meaningful debates about the data. They just want to sit up there and tell you, oh, they're black. They black. Listen to me. They black. They fucking black. Please, just listen to me. They hate their own people. They hate themselves. They're going to get they're agents of the enemy. Give me a damn break. If y'all really about the information, then you will stick to the information. Stop always looking for fringe shit all the damn time. Oh, Christopher Ehret said, fuck Christopher Ehret. Here's Schumann. This is from the supplemental information from the paper written in 2017, published in 2017. It says the current distribution of E1B1 in North Africa could also be caused by the back migration from the Near East to Africa that have already been proposed by several authors. Now, Soikita says in the book that was mentioned by Cooney, she helped edit it. That book is titled Ancient Egyptian Society, Challenging Assumptions, Exploring Approaches. Chapter 11 is Ancient Egyptian Origins and Identity. He has some harsh words about this, and this is why I don't rock with Soikita, because he does say some things that's off. But he's this is erroneous. No, this is a possibility, and that's how we work in the realm of science. We deal with possibility. This is very plausible, because where we see E1B1B1, and even family tree DNA globe tracker places this marker outside of Africa. The high frequency of haplogroup R1M173 in Cameroon also support the back migration from Eurasia to Africa. Affinity with the Near East and the Levant kills the argument. The ancient DNA data revealed a high level of affinity between the ancient inhabitants of Abu Sar al-Malek and modern populations from the Near East and the Levant. Look, man, it's been years. Show me the samples that connect them. This is why Soikita was like, oh, look at the arm links and the bones. Who cares about that? That's all morphology. All that shit's plastic. Show me the genetic links between my ancient Egyptians and people that live in the Horn or live in the Congo so damn well, because y'all claiming these people so damn much. Show me that. But what we can show you with the available DNA data today, what we can put on display is that there's a connection to the Near East and the Levant. We can show that. We can't show your fucking fairy tale. We can't show Diop's fucking fairy tale that everybody that's from on the land or on the continent comes from Egypt that are Negro. The ancient DNA data revealed a high level of affinity between the ancient inhabitants of Abu Sar al-Malik and modern populations from the Near East and the Levant. It goes on to read, our data seem to indicate close admixture and affinity at a much earlier date, which is 750 years ago, because in the modern population, we can see there was an admixture at 750 years ago. But the data here are the 3 mummies and their full genome sequence, or a portion of the full genome sequence. And we can see that they have an affinity to the Near East and the Levant. It says, which is unsurprising given the long and complex connections between Egypt and the Middle East. These connections date back to prehistory. So before writing, right here again, here's a study from 2023. Well, this study hasn't been published yet, but this is a future. We're still waiting on this paper to be published. It says, using enrichment capture targeted mitochondrial DNA, we are able to reconstruct complete mitochondrial genomes for 25 individuals dating from the pre-dynastic period to the Coptic period. So that's 3,500 years BCE to 650 CE, and encompassing the archaeological sites of Asyut, Akhmin, Deir al-Bahari, Deir al-Medina, Thebes, the Valley of Queens, and Gebelin. These genomes exhibit a mtDNA haplogroup diversity similar to the ancient Egyptian haplogroup profiles published by Schumann et al. 2017. This provides further evidence for shared maternal ancestors between Western Eurasian or North African populations and ancient Egyptians during and after the New Kingdom. In addition, we also found Western Eurasian mitochondrial DNA haplogroups in individuals dated to periods prior to the New Kingdom. Furthermore, we performed a whole genome enrichment capture on 7 individuals to test these findings also on a genome-wide scale. We're still waiting on that paper, but they tell us what the findings are. We're getting some good information, a good bit of information about the ancestry of ancient Egyptians, and it's not looking good for you Afrocentrics. Most of this shit is West Eurasian, North African-like, and it's not Sub-Saharan African-like. Again, family tree DNA puts EM35, which is E1, B1 outside of Africa, right here in the Sinai. Share genetic drift and affinity with the Takakori genomes. This is from that paper with the last green Sahara. As you can see, the ancient Egyptian sample and the Northern Sudan Kadruka sample are the same color as your Near Eastern and European samples, meaning there's an affinity between all of these groups. Now, the Kadruka sample, matter of fact, let me just go to the paper and go to this portion of the paper so we can get a better look at this damn chart. Let me blow this up. Hold on. Remember, this is tracking affinity. So all of the circles with this similar color, this bluish color here, they share common ancestry, and it's usually ancient Levant and Eurasian. Here's the annotation here, as you guys can see. And you see this right here. This is in Northern Sudan here. Northern Sudan, same color as the, because remember they said if you get further south, that's where we're going to find the Sub-Saharan African DNA. Well, how further south? There's Upper Egypt here, and then we got Sudan right there. How much further south you need to go? Oh, we need to get all the way down to South Africa. Yeah, we see a change there. We don't see a change up here. That's the problem. That's the problem y'all running into. So the Egyptian sample here in Lower Egypt, right, in the Delta, and then that's Abu Sir El Malik, I believe. And then we have the Kadruka sample, and I believe it's like 4,000 years old. And it has an affinity towards Near Easterners and ancient Levantines. Bro, the gig is up. The gig been up. The gig been up. The gig has been up, man. It's over for you cats, man. Y'all might as well just hang the shit up, but y'all not. Y'all gonna keep y'all gonna keep reverberating the same bullshit, regurgitating the same bullshit. So at the time of me making this PowerPoint, we did not have the official paper of the neurotic sample, but we did have this paper that basically said he had a particular E1, B1, B1, B2 clade, right? And even when we put this in Globe Trekker, it goes outside of Africa. And then we also have his mitochondrial DNA was I. And we know haplogroup I is a European haplogroup, meaning a group of females that came from Europe in times past, made their way into Egypt. Their descendants made their way into Egypt. So just like Cooney said, these are a mixed group of people. That's literally what we see in the genetic analysis of ancient Egyptians. Tells you here, Neurot carried mitochondrial DNA haplogroup I, which originated 21,000 years ago in West Asia. In present-day populations, haplogroup is widely distributed, but at low frequencies. Haplogroup I was present, but in low frequencies, approximately 5% in ancient individuals from the study on pre-Ptolemaic, and Roman periods. Neurot 001 carried E1, B1, B1, B2, Y chromosome haplogroup, which is descended from E1, B1, B1B, and exclusively North African, being associated with Berber and Western Desert Egyptian population. Of 230 intermediate period individuals from Egypt, one carried subhaplogroup E1, B1, B1. So there you go. There you have it. And we can go even further with that. If I go to my Genesis 49ers page and we deal with the Neurot sample, we can easily go to, I got something quicker for you. Let me do this real quick. Let me go to the Y tree. The Y tree. We're gonna go to the website. I'm gonna show you how to use. Matter of fact, I'm gonna show you how to use this damn tool. We're gonna share this tab. Then we're gonna go to samples. Then we're gonna go to ancients. So then we're gonna type in Egypt. There it is. There's your Neurot sample. I can copy that. Oh, I don't want to copy a link. Copy the text. Anyway, click the neuron, boom. And then what I want to do is I want to open up family tree DNA. I'm like, man, this is too complicated. You know, why would I have to do all this, man? Let's just say they black. A lot of you niggas lazy. That's how y'all be getting caught by these charlatans. Y'all lazy. Y'all don't want to put in the work. Y'all don't want to read. That's how y'all get fooled all the damn time. None of you Negroes want to read. You don't want to study. And then when y'all do read, y'all choose to read fringe studies, fringe scientists, people that live outside of that have fringe positions that exist outside of the consensus. All right, now let's go to Globe Trekker. Now I'm gonna paste that haplogroup there from that Egyptian, and we're gonna see where his haplogroup originated from. Oh, would you look at that? Outside of Africa, in Asia some damn where, in Arabia some damn where. And as you can see, the E1B1B traveling, look, it's all in the Levantine region. This is what we expect to see, even in southern Turkey. So it originated here around 2850 BC, according to Globe Trekker. Like we've been saying, these people have been vasculating these areas for thousands of years. This is why the people in Egypt are vastly different from a person, let's say, in Chad some damn where, or even further west or further south. Their ancestry ties to this region here. Anyway, so ancient nuclear DNA from ancient North Africans points towards this continuity. As we can see, the Eurasian admixture had a large influence on the genomes of Northeast African groups. The Egyptians and Sudanese Copts populations, for instance, are genetically very similar to Middle Eastern groups rather than to other African populations. The pattern is true also for the rest of North Africa and present as early as at least 15,000 years ago. So basically all of North Africa would have been more Eurasian-like within the last 15,000 years. That includes your dynastic period. There goes your Diop book. Eurasian back migration to Northeast Africa was a complex and multifaceted process. We're hammering at all 2023. And you notice how we try to stay up to date here. We try to stay up to date. 2022, 2023, 2024, 2020 papers here. The North African component comes from non-Africans. Model B shows North African population splitting from the Middle East in a back to Africa movement. This is the model mostly supported in previous analysis by population structure and that mixture F3 approaches. Mostly supported that the North African populations literally split from Middle Eastern populations. Literally. Again, here's the ancient African samples here. Ancient African samples, Nearite, largely non-Sub-Saharan African, basically Guanchi, the Moroccan SKH population, 87% of its ancestry is non-African. The KTG, 86% non-African. And look, this is almost 8,000 years ago with these ancient Moroccans here. Largely non-African DNA. Abusar el-Malek, 85 to 94% non-African DNA. Algeria, more present, 1 to 700 CE, 85% non-African DNA. Tunisia from Hergla, 5900 BP. Tunisia Carthaginian, majority non-African. So we see the same thing to various sub-Saharan African groups. The Ibero-Maurusians, majority non-African. Again, Kadruka, a Kadruka Nubian being 45.2% non-African. This is 4,000 years ago. Oh no, they didn't start changing it to the Greeks and the Ptolemaics and the no, this shit had been happening. They've been vasculating an area for thousands of years. Tanzania, we see 37.2 to 39% showing that influence coming from the north down south made its way to Tanzania and Kenya, because as you can see, Kenya 30 to 40% non-African, Swahili 26 to 68%, Libya, the Takakori There you go. There you have it. Those are your North African samples. The fact that mitochondrial U6 is found in North Africa, it's clear that there was admixture. Just like the lady said, these people are highly mixed. They've been highly mixed for a long time. U6 has its origin in Central fucking Europe. This is a group of women, female descendants. Origin in Europe. And then they make their way into North Africa. The putative date is around 30,000 years ago. The presence of the basal haplogroup U6 in Southeast Europe, Romania at 35,000 years before present confirms a Eurasian origin of the U6 mitochondrial lineage. Consequently, we propose that the PM1 lineage is an offshoot to Southeast Europe that can be traced to the early upper Paleolithic back migration from Western Asia to North Africa, during which the U6 lineage diversified until the emergence of the present day U6 African lineages. There's my source. The mitogenome of a 35,000-year-old Homo sapien from Europe supports a Paleolithic back migration to Africa. The haplotype of PM1 individual belongs to the basal U6 haplogroup from which the rest of haplotypes were derived. This scenario confirms that U6 mitochondrial lineage has a Eurasian origin, supporting the hypothesis of an early back migration from Eurasia to North Africa in the early Paleolithic, upper Paleolithic. So when I was debating this, I recapped everything. We went over nuclear DNA, showing you that it was non-African, paternal DNA majorly non-African, maternal DNA majorly non-African. Everything we know about North Africa from a genetic standpoint is non-African. It's non-sub-Saharan African mainly, because what we call North African is just a split from Middle Eastern. All aspects of DNA show and prove that ancient Egyptians were largely non-African, showcasing a genetic discontinuity. After the African humid period, the climatic conditions became rapidly hyper-arid, and the Green Sahara was replaced by the desert, which acted as a strong geographic barrier against human movements between northern and sub-Saharan Africa. A consequence of this is that there is a strong differentiation in the Y haplogroup composition between the northern and sub-Saharan regions of the African continent. In the northern area, the predominant Y lineages, these are male lineages, haplogroup J and EM81, with the latter reaching a frequency as high as 80% in some populations. The massive presence of these lineages in the northern Africa has been explained as a consequence of a Neolithic migration from the Middle East. And this is from D'Antanasio in our doctoral thesis named Trans-Saharan Connections, High Resolution Analysis of Humanity Y Chromosome Diversity. Here's from that paper here. The coastal region of northern Africa, the Near East, and southern Europe. The analysis of EM78 haplogroup revealed an interesting link between northern Africa, the Near East, and southern Europe. In fact, we found that the chromosomes from these three areas clustered together after the Green Sahara period. We did not analyze all the SNPs, including the Mediterranean branches, so we cannot absolutely exclude the presence of region-specific clades. However, the similar distribution of Y haplogroups for example, I want y'all to hear this: EV257, EM123, JM267, JM172, GM201, TM70. This is largely different than sub-Saharan Africans. We don't see these haplogroups here. Hold on, let me go back. In a high clip amongst Nigerians. But y'all claim to be this subset of North Africans known as Egyptians. But why we don't see these being the predominant male ancestries? We do not. Therefore, your whole ancient Egyptians are us bullshit is refuted. And it says, and of mtDNA lineages in the Mediterranean area seems to suggest extensive contacts between North Africa, the Near East, and Southern Europe. Interestingly, concordant results have been obtained from genome-wide studies of modern or ancient humans, which found signals of Near Eastern and Southern European admixture in Northern Africa. Then she lists all the papers during this time. In conclusion, this bulk of data indicate that the Mediterranean regions have been ceaselessly and extensively in contact over the last thousands of years. More specifically, after the end of the African humid period, Northern Africa was influenced by the Middle Eastern, Southern European events, and vice versa. A consequence of this is that the Northern African population became more and more genetically differentiated from the sub-Saharan ethnic groups. This is vastly different than what you would hear from Diop, Dr. Reggie, Jabari, Sekou. Vastly different. And this goes back to her key point when she said 70% of the population matches with the ancient population. They would never agree to that. Talking about, oh, she agreed with us. No, she did not. You guys are doctrinaires, right? You can't even turn your goddamn doctrine lens off. Everything has to recapitulate what you believe in and shit. So now this is from the whole genome ancestry of an old kingdom Egyptian. Then we'll get back and let her say whatever she has to say. But anyway, we can look at this to the right here. This section is called B. This segment here is the admixture proportion of modern Egyptians. So this is their ancestry broken down. So modern Egyptians have key elements from several groups, from Morocco, Middle Neolithic groups, the early Nearite Egyptian, Old Kingdom Egyptian, the Caucasus, Bronze Age, Levant Bronze Age, Greece Minoan, the Iron Bronze Age, Congo, and Ethiopians. What do we see as a major representative of the ancestry of modern Egyptians? Did you see this red color here that you see all around here? That's the genome of the Old Kingdom Egyptian in the paper. So majority of modern Egyptians are related to Old Kingdom Egyptians because we see the same sequence of DNA in the modern Egyptians that connect them to the ancient Egyptians, the Old Kingdom Egyptian. You don't see this in African Americans. You ain't gonna find this in Jabari's genome. You ain't gonna find it in Smash Rockwell's genome. They're gonna take the DNA test and they shit gonna be primarily West Central African, West European, and a little bit of Native American. Your DNA test is not going to connect you to no goddamn Old Kingdom Egyptian. But you're going around telling everybody, look at the walls of Egypt. They're black. I'm black. We all black. We the same. Reggie said, Negroes here, there, and everywhere. All of North Africa was black until the invaders came in. And as we can see, modern Egyptians share ancestry with Old Kingdom Egyptians. Whoop-de goddamn do, right? This should have been known. This should have been known. This should have been known. Anyway, back to the video.
And who's asking for it? And then things start to get really tricky really fast. And that's where the patriarchal claims come in. And for the whole conversation, whenever I'm talking about this, patriarchy has done all of us, men and women and children, so much damage. And I like to transcend the patriarchal claims as much as possible. Then you can have a conversation that's really interesting. And it's not like, those are our people. Those aren't your people. It's more, we're people. And we all get mixed up. And it's a complicated world out there. Yeah.
You know, it's funny that if you look at the whole world.
You know what she said? And again, I don't agree with her harping on patriarchy, but this is obviously clear that she didn't agree with anything Jabari had to say or what Sekou had to say or Smash Rockwell had to say, because she believes that whole idea that they support is just a negative product of the patriarchy of just saying, oh, these all people are black. And she also believes it stems from the one drop rule. She says in the beginning of this video that you guys are just applying the one drop rule to Egyptians and claiming they black and they're your people and shit. So she disavows that whole argument, but this idiot literally got on Sunday TV and said she was agreeing with me. She was agreeing with you. Like these two clowns agree that ancient Egypt was heavily mixed with Levantine peoples, Mediterranean peoples. Get the hell out of here, man.
So,
Jabari, before you do that, I want you to read this.
Yes, this is a Fair Use Act disclaimer because we are going to use clips from other people's channels, and we think that they might get big mad. They might get a little big mad on this. And that's fine. It's okay to be big mad. What they will probably try to do, Sean Netter, is strike your channel saying that you don't have permission to use their video. Now, you know very well that once you say, I'm using it for fair use, I'm making commentary, that will fall down. So the worst that could happen is they're going to stop you from showing it for a few days, maybe a week or two, but it's going to be right back up.
Right.
So, folks, what we have to do is listen to the clips. Some of the people in the chat, Smash can actually articulate this as well. Some of the people in the chat were saying, I don't see how they disagreed with them. And I kept saying, wait a minute, time code this, time code that. Are you not listening to what was said? Because some folks they don't have the ability to understand what's being said. So tonight, what we'll do.
Some people are not under your damn doctrine. This idea that you got to push Negro, they black, they us. Not everybody believes that bullshit. And then I just showed to my audience exactly what she said in the beginning of that video. And it's directly apropos to the things you guys say. I mean, diametrically opposed to the things you guys say. Clearly, the idea that ancient Egypt was mixed, the idea that race doesn't really fit what they had going. That's a colonial concept, and you guys are applying the one-drop rule to ancient Egypt. It's a negative aspect of the patriarchy. That's all she was saying. And I know these are points that fly right in the face of you clowns. But let me go down real quick. Let me see what you say. Let's see if any cheerleaders here. Crashing out overall, I think the parties involved, blah, blah, blah. You need to reevaluate your position. If X believes in you. Hotep Jabari. Damu's side. Damn, this was a beatdown. Oh, this is a beatdown. They beat down them brothers. According to Uncle's Wrong, confluence does not mean an area where people meet at all. Blah, blah, blah. Falls off bizarre treatment of race is a social construct, not race itself. Race is not a social construct. Since it began with being based on actual physical traits, physical differences from the beginning that are real attributes that are natural to people associated to different land masses on Earth. And the mere joining of these different people later on only creates variables and mixture of physical traits. But none of that means race is a social construct. Therefore, the treatment of race as social construct is not race itself. So this person is a race realist. He's trying to justify the use of race or whatever. But anyway, race is false. Race is a social damn construct. And just because you may look similar to somebody across the globe, don't make you similar to someone across the goddamn globe.
Is we'll actually explain it clearly. And I would expect, I see Smash there. Smash is equipped to do this. This didn't have to be me. Smash,
this is the first show we did where I can't stop laughing. Right?
He could have done this. And I know Reggie must be, even if he's not in the chat, he's going to be in the chat. Reggie could have done this. All of us are saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing. The reality is that I don't understand how they've turned against themselves. Because if you just go back a few years, you will hear Garfield say, I don't know why you're trying to make Kemet be everything. It was wonderful. It was an African nation that did incredible things. Let's let it stay to where it is. Now they're not black anymore. And Unc said the same thing. And you even heard Chief X say, I got Kemetic tattoos all over me because I was into that. Now I know some more. No, you don't, brother. You're not reading your sources properly. There goes Reggie in the chat right now. Reggie should come on too. Because the reality is, listen, this was fun. I could have gone to a comedy club on Sunday. I wouldn't have laughed as much as I laughed at this.
You're right.
Now listen, she was really trying to articulate some things that were different than both of what they said. They're different than what they said, right? Mm-hmm. That's not always fun. You bring someone on, they probably paid her, and then they end up disagreeing with you. And you can see Garfield doing this, and I'm doing this.
I look like about to cry.
And then sometimes they just did nothing. It was so strange. Look at that. Look at the screenshot. It was so strange, this discussion, because very clearly they had put certain people.
And this is what they do, narrative weave. Oh, they were wrong, they were false, they were. Now I just let y'all listen to the entirety of the beginning of this, where she made these comments about race and how she feels that it's erroneous to apply this to these ancient people or in North Africa, period, because what black means to you doesn't mean the same to them. And she broke that thing down. And the idea of saying that all black people are my people is patriarchal, negative aspect of it. She said all that shit. No, man, just watch. This is garbage, bro.
Up as experts, and the experts are saying what we're saying.
Now, go back to that screenshot real quick. I want to point out something that our brother Aunt must have known he was going to make a terrible mess, because he pulled up with a full box of Scott's paper towels in the back seat. So he knew he was about to make a mess. I just wanted to point that out.
Maybe it should have been Kleenex because they were going to be crying in the background. By the way, there was also a section where they cut the video and spoke to her in the back chat and then came back. I wonder what they said. I wonder what they said. But this was bad. It was bad. It was bad. So let's show a few clips. I want to show a few clips. I want you to be able to understand how bad this was, why we're saying it was bad. And I don't want people to tell you what was actually said. Because some of the folks in the chat, I'll be really honest with you, they did not understand what was going on. They didn't understand what was going on. And to some degree, we shouldn't beat them up about that. I have spent all of my adult life studying this. All of my adult life. I was literally, you could still call me a child when I started studying this. And I know that based on the scholarship that Smash has put forward, based on the scholarship. Now, listen, Reggie and I were both kids when we first started. He wasn't that old and I wasn't that old. We've been studying this for a really long time. Now, all of a sudden, they're saying that no one should listen to us. They call us EGYPTOMANIACs. By the way, they didn't call her that. They didn't call her that. They didn't use that ridiculous term with her. And in addition to all of this, now they're saying that Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark should be ignored. And sometimes people on their channel even say something like, there's new information. I want to be really clear.
Yeah, Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark should be ignored because if we don't ignore them, we get people like you. We get people like Sonetta. We get people like this clown, Smash Rockwell. That's what happens when we don't ignore them.
Listen to every millisecond of this interview. Dr. Kara Cooney didn't cite anything new. This is ancient. This is not something that happened yesterday and we're still waiting for the investigation. This is ancient information. So this is really important so that we're able to understand what is being said. And I saw Sekou. Sekou was one of the people that said, Jabari, you need to go look at this. He was one of the people that told me that. You need to go look at it. Just go look at it, Jabari. He was one of the people.
Yo, Sekou was in the building going in on him.
Listen.
She's saying the same thing Jabari's saying.
He was watching it probably live because he's one of the people that said, Jabari, I don't know what you're doing. You need to watch this. So when I looked at it, I'm telling you, I was screaming. I was screaming. I started writing notes. I started taking clips. I was like, wait, do they not understand how bad this is? And then they would still smile and thank her and say, I don't think our community understands what you're saying. No, you don't understand what she's saying. Stop trying to insult us. We're saying what she said. And I want you to remember, there are a large number of quote unquote Egyptologists, specialists on ancient Africa, who are now coming around to what we are saying. Remember when I played for everyone? Yes, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Look at this. Look at this. Here it is. And here's the deal. Sonetta, I wish you would do this. I want you to find the video where Ankh, I came in, Ankh was already there, and he was reading this book. And I said, Ankh, I see you reading a book. Great minds think alike. I'm using it in my class. And he just nodded at me. So either he's pretending to read the book or he's read the book. If he's read the book, then why is he never saying that this expert is disagreeing with what he's saying?
Whoa, shit.
Why does he never say that? He makes it sound like, well, experts don't agree with you. And I know Reggie says he was the first to go over the book for the community. Brother, I got a preview copy and I was sharing it with my students in Hunter. This is not about who did what first. The reality is we need to find this. And we need to make sure that
there's a fringe position. They all run to, and I'll show you what they run to. I own the book here on my Kindle. We discussed this on the channel before. They run to this one segment in the paper where it says, the Egyptians came from the south. The issue is none of the genetic information is pointing towards that. That's an issue. All of the genetic data from North Africa is showing that it's more related to West Asians and Middle Easterns than sub-Saharan African populations. I've read some of it to you from my PowerPoint for the debate. It's just a bunch of flim-flam. So I'm actually trying to find. So here it's in the chapter Africanity of Ancient Egypt, where he makes this claim. And since he made this claim, now they're saying, "Oh, we have a scholar who says this. Who gives a fuck? Who cares?" He's fringe on this position that ancient Egypt primarily descends from people from the south going north. As I showed you guys all the modern scholarship in genetics. Again, Christopher Arrett he does with linguistic studies. He's not a goddamn geneticist, right? And I can't find it. Where is it at? Empire of Ghana. Let me see. Let me go to my Let me open my notes. I'm gonna let it play while I look for it. So
folks see it. I showed you several scholars. Listen to what first. Before we go into them, remember what he said. He said ancient Egypt was in Africa. More important, ancient Egypt was of Africa. That is not the way that the previous 2 centuries of Western scholarship have presented this story. I want you to understand what he's saying. He's saying the arguments that Ankh, I'm sorry, Reggie, I got you. The arguments that Ankh, the arguments that Garfield, the arguments that Chief Ankh or Chief X are making are the dated information. That's what he's saying. Let's continue. For too long, ancient Egypt was portrayed as if it were an offshoot of earlier Middle Eastern developments, as a region of somehow intrusive peoples coming from somewhere outside of Africa. It is long past time for us to discard these old notions rooted as if they were self-serving racialist presumptions of 19th century Europeans' notions that too many people still simply assume and never think to examine. The most recent generation of scholars and scholarship on Nubia and Egypt have been uncovering extensive new bodies of evidence that are casting aside the older assumptions and following where their evidence leads. The older ideas do linger on, though, and scholars from other fields of study, not versed in the newer findings, and older Egyptologists as well, may still presume those views. There is, for example, a recent genetics article proposing that the ancient Egyptians were of Levantine background. By the way, I analyzed that article when I was last here talking about the blackness of Kemet. But those findings come from a solitary northern ancient Egyptian locale, a site dating to more than 2,000 years after the foundational period of ancient Egypt, and located in an area of Egypt that had by that time a history of more than 1,000 years of recurrent immigration of individuals and communities from the Levant into Egypt. These immigrants included, among others, communities of artisans and producers of valued goods, settlements encouraged by the rulers of Egypt. The military invasion of the Hyksos, coming from Levantine in the 17th century BCE, and their rule for more than a century over large parts of northern Egypt would also have brought an additional genetic component of Levantine background in those northern Egyptian regions. He's trying to say to you that Kemet and Nubia are related.
Yeah, he does. He does try to make this claim. He does try to dismiss Schumann et al. 2017. First of all, he's not a geneticist, so he's out of pocket. Secondly, we have other papers that came out after Schumann et al. Was published in 2017. We got several papers, and I went over them. All of North Africa is pretty much, which is the accepted model by the consensus, a split from the Middle Eastern populations. Can't get around that. The Old Kingdom Egyptian is largely non-Sub-Saharan African. That's an Old Kingdom Egyptian. So that's before Hyksos. That's before any goddamn Hyksos. That's before any Greek, Ptolemaic, before the Bronze Age collapse, before all of these things. These people still were heavily related to Levantine groups. Heavily related to. Oh, I analyzed the paper. I bet you did. I bet you did. you analyzed the paper. You guys, I've covered Shaka analyzing a scientific paper and he shitted himself. And I covered Asar covering a scientific paper and he shitted all over himself. You guys are terrible when it comes to analyzing scientific papers. And one of the reasons why you are terrible at it is because you cannot remove your belief. That's what makes you suck at it. You can't remove your belief. Therefore, so when we're looking at these papers, you can't accept what it actually says because in your mind, everything has to conform to your previous beliefs or your preconceived notions of ancient Egypt. So you block out all that shit. That's why you blocked out everything she said about calling Egypt all black as a negative aspect of patriarchy. And it's African Americans, invoking the one drop rule. Remember she said that, but you said, oh, she agreed with you. The ancient Egypt was mixed and they look beautiful because, that mixture makes a perfect symmetry of the face and all the other shit. That's shit you would never say. That shit you would never say, right? So we do have the old dynastic Egyptian, and you guys did try to read this shit. And I think Reggie tried to read it. He butchered it. But we're in the paper here. A whole genome ancestry of an Old Kingdom Egyptian. It says all accepted QP atom models showed the presence of ancestry related to Middle Neolithic Morocco and the Nuerat genome. Therefore, our results could indicate shared ancestry across North Africa during this period, and consequently, that local Egyptian Neolithic population contributed genetically to the early dynastic and Old Kingdom people, as indicated from material culture and bioarchaeological analysis. However, because the genomes from the Middle Neolithic Morocco have previously been modeled to comprise both Ibero-Maurusian-like and Levantine Neolithic ancestry components, which we corroborated. So this paper corroborates with the Levantine Neolithic ancestry components and the ancient Egyptians. These people are literally, quite literally, Levantine, not sub-Saharan African. They're not coming from the Horn of Africa. Oh, they go, the mountain of the moon, the mountain of the moon. That is a goddamn papyrus, a story engendered in the damn 12th century. That's not a genetic test. The idiocy that you guys spew. But again, Sinetta TV is the pinnacle of scholarship in this community. It says, which we corroborated. And it says extended data figure 6. We're going to go to that. It goes on to read, the affinity to Levantine Neolithic groups could reflect several migration events. To explore these alternative hypotheses in detail, further ancient DNA studies on pre-Bronze Age genomes from North Africa are required. So we go to the extended data figure 6, figure 3, 4, extended data figure 2, 3, and then 5, 6. It clearly states here, as you guys can see, the Neorite individual has Zagros Neolithic ancestry. Where's Zagros? That's in the Caucasus Mountains. Morocco Epipaleolithic, that's the North African component. And the remaining DNA is Levantine Neolithic DNA. Majority Levantine DNA. This is the Old Kingdom Egyptian that lived more than 4,500 years ago. Early dynastic Egyptian, and he has an affinity to the Levantine Neolithic groups. Now, your excuse that Christopher Arrett used, oh, it's all influx of these other groups, which would still kill your argument, because even after the Hyksos, y'all still claim King Tut and Amos and Hatshepsut and shit. Basically, all the goddamn writings y'all fucking invoke are pretty much like New Kingdom onward. And according to Eric conceded that those people would be Eurasian, but you motherfuckers act like those your people too, you fucking idiots. It gets, hey, just get murk when the cliffs disperse, but don't leave yet. The shit gets worse. It says the second genetic ancestry component detected in the Neorite individual is most closely related to Neolithic Mesopotamians. Mesopotamians. Out of the potential sources included in the model competition to further examine the putative affinity to Neolithic Mesopotamia, we computed a series of F4 statistics testing whether a set of groups share more derived alleles with Neorite than the Middle Neolithic Morocco in the form F4. Here X represents the rotating sources of QP atom with the addition of Levantine, Paleolithic, Anatolian, Paleolithic, and Bronze Age Levantine genomes. Why didn't you use Sub-Saharan Africa? Oh, I forgot. It doesn't have any genomes or any genes that connected to a damn Sub-Saharan Africa. The statistic was maximized statistically significant with Neolithic Mesopotamia as X. The affinity has also been seen in the statistic F4. So again, they tested all these other populations, and Neolithic Mesopotamian ancestry was the best fit, which is positive for all tested populations. X consistent with an ancestry affinity between the individual from Neorite and Neolithic Mesopotamia with Z-scores greater than 2 for all except Zagros and Caucasus groups and Chalcolithic and Bronze Age Levantine groups. So although we caution that these results are based on a single Egyptian genome, they mirror another study that found evidence of gene flow from Mesopotamia and Zagros regions into surrounding areas, including Anatolia during the Neolithic. Whoop, there it is. Whoop, there it is. Together with archaeological evidence for cultural exchange, these findings open the possibility that wider cultural and demographic, meaning people moving, expansions originating in the Mesopotamian region reached both Egypt and Anatolia during this period. This ain't antiquated, but this is all old. No, this is up-to-date science. Up-to-date science is showing that these people were in contact, heavily in contact. Archaeology been showing that. Lapis lazuli come from Afghanistan. Sheep's caprines come from outside of Egypt. The subsistence strategy of pastoralism comes from outside of Egypt, and farming. Egypt literally adopts farming from outside of Egypt. So wheat and barley, we know where that comes from. Like, do not even get me started on that. Anyway, back to the damn stupidity session.
Explained this when I was last here. This book came out last year. Jabari, your information is dated. Really? Show me which information you're using. This is from last year. I showed you another article, a scientific article from 2003, where this woman, Sonia Zaruski, actually looked at body proportions. And she came up with the term that I don't even like. She said that Kemetic body proportions were super negroid, not just in like on the outer skirts, on the outer fringes of the geometric the measurements that are usually given for people who are from the region. She's saying they're dead smack in the middle. They were super negroid, is what she said. I'm not going to read this whole thing now. And then, of course, you can go. By the way, I showed you where. This is an important part. I showed you which period she was looking at. She compares people all the way from the Badarian period. She's talking about people in Kemet before Kemet was Kemet. And she compares them with people going all the way to the Middle Kingdom. And in looking at their body proportions, she's saying these are Africans. When you do these studies, when people compare the ancient people to some sort of measurement they have for modern people, you have to always ask when and where. Because if you don't know when and where, you can't even cite that study.
So here we go. Another argument. Again, she says, oh, look, the length of arms, the morphology, the cranial assessment shows that these people are African. The issue is, and this is why I disagree with a lot of what Keita does. The issue is, this does not tell you their genetic ancestry. It does not. Shared morphology does not tell you the ancestry of the ancient Egyptians. What does show you is the DNA. And what we have so far, and this number is going to even grow. Like, look, it's 2025. The field of genetics is a very young field. You know, by the time we are old and gray, we're going to get even more and more samples. But all of the samples we have in North Africa in general, all of them point away from sub-Saharan Africa, not towards it. Now, you can play this morphological game all goddamn day, and you're going to run into the same goddamn genetic brick wall. And this goes back to the race idea, too, because this is what they used to do in the 19th century. They would use craniometry, cranial measurements to try to make these arguments about who's who and try to fit people in the Caucasoid, the Negroid. That's basically what he's trying to do. No one uses that in modern academia or modern, especially in modern genetics, unless you're a fringe person. This is why I call Soy Keita, because Soy Keita does do that. You're fringe. He's fringe. People hate me saying that, but it's true. Oh, you hate blacks? No, it's not that. It's his method. I have no issue with Muntaser. Muntaser don't do that. And he's a Sudanese geneticist. He's black. You will call him black. You perceive him black, right? No issue whatsoever. So now, I'm going to let it play.
It doesn't make sense. Because we know that Kemet actually ended up having the misfortune of several foreign invasions. We could start with the Hyksos, but they aren't even the oldest. But let's start with the Hyksos, people who were kicked out of Kemet by a native population from further into the interior of Africa. And then when you go further, you actually see that later on, we're going to see the Persians, we're going to see the Assyrians, we're going to see the Greeks, we're going to see the Romans, and we're going to see the Arabs. And we're talking about a period of invasions that go easily over 1,000 years. And then what they expect you to do, what these people who are making these poor arguments, folks like Garfield, folks like Ankh, folks like Chief X, what they want you to do is look at the people who are there now and say they are exactly how they've always looked. That doesn't make sense. So what we need to do now is we need to show you an expert.
He says, oh, that doesn't make sense. And this shows that these people, and look, he put expert in quotations because obviously he doesn't agree with what the experts say. These assholes do not agree. So if I go to ancient Near Eastern, let me get this book real quick. History and Culture by William H. Steibing Jr., which is a Seraphiel Leda professor of history at the University of New Orleans, and then Susan N. Helft, the lecturer at Rutgers University, Newark. So if I go to this source, right, I can go to the segment of this source that it particularly deals with the skin color of the Egyptians. And the reason why they even took out the time to write this in this damn expensive ass book is because they know there's idiots like Jabari, Afrocentrics, that believe in Diop, that believe in their Lord and Savior, Obenga, and Renuka Rashidi. So they felt the need to address this. So let me open up my handy dandy Kindle. Let me open my handy dandy Kindle real quick, share screen. And here's my Kindle right here. So this is from the book Ancient Near Eastern History and Culture. And we're on, and it's basically going to agree with what Cooney was saying. It says here that the ancient Egyptians were mixed. After 10,000 BCE, as the weather began to, hold on, you know what, I want to read Debating the Evidence to People of Egypt. Let's just read the whole thing, because there's things about the Afrocentric and Eurocentric view that needs to be addressed. So in the past 3 or 4 decades, there has been much popular interest in the racial identity of the ancient Egyptians. At one time, it was European scholars who raised the issue, proposing theories that Egyptian civilization was produced by the immigration and invasion of the dynastic race. The racial identity of these supposed newcomers was not usually stated, but it was assumed that they entered Egypt from Western Asia, not from other parts of Africa. Today, the idea of the dynastic race in early Egypt has been completely abandoned. However, in recent years, the issue of racial identity of the ancient Egyptians has been broached primarily in Afrocentric works. For example, that's what EG means. Diop, 1974. He's naming all your guys. Diop, 1974. Van Sertima, 1989. And Asante in 1998. Such works attempted to counter Eurocentric racist disparagement of African Americans and other blacks while arguing that almost all civilizations originated in Egypt and was created by black Africans. Martin Bernal's Black Athena, though not truly an Afrocentric work, brought much scholarly attention to this subject. Bernal did not emphasize race, but he did argue that much of the Greek civilization derived from ancient Egypt. Even though most of Bernal's thesis has been rejected by almost all specialists in ancient Near Eastern civilization, as well as those specializing in the culture of early Greece, it has been widely used by Afrocentric scholars. And that's what we see a lot with like Diop, Benga. A lot of these things have been rejected by the larger scope of academia. But you see idiots like Jabari, like he got mad, oh, we need to reject Dr. Bannon Clark. These people have been rejected. Their ideas of Egyptian race and all this other crazy shit, all being black, has been firmly rejected. It says, why has racial identity of the ancient Egyptians become important to so many people? The answer to that question varies, but usually those who ask whether the Egyptians were white or black accept 2 incorrect premises. First, the question implies the existence of biologically distinct, relatively pure races that develop in isolation from one another over long periods of time. Now, real quick, Cooney brought this up. Who is to determine what's pure and what's not? These people were not pure; they were mixed. Second, the questionnaires generally believe that there is a link between what they regard as race and cultural achievement. Again, this is spot on, because the first thing that was said in the beginning of this fucking clip or this video with Jabari is, oh, all the cultural achievements, and now it's a problem that they're black, and now black don't matter because it's cultural achievements. The racial identity of the ancient Egyptians is important to many individuals because they want to claim early Egyptian accomplishments for themselves and other members of their own race. And that's exactly what we see in the Afrocentric community, exactly what we see Jabari attempting to do, what we see Smash Rockwell attempting to do. And this is why they belong in the dustbin of history, in the garbage pail of history. Reading on. Most archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians usually try to avoid such discussions because they realize that the concept of race is a cultural construct rather than a legitimate biological category. And this is why it's hard for you guys to grasp this, because y'all believe it's a biological category because you think all you got to do is wave a one and say ancient Egyptians are black and now they're your ancestors. Modern genetic studies have shown that only 16% of the variations between individual humans exist between the major so-called races. On the other hand, 94% of the differences occur within specific population groups. Differences in easily observable physical traits usually provide the basis upon which cultures distinguishes race from one another. However, often use racial characteristics such as skin color, hair texture, the shape of eyelids, nose, lips, or other features are often vary independently through space and over time. Furthermore, there is no demonstrable relationship between such physical characteristics and intelligence or cultural achievement. Now, after 10,000 BC, as the weather began to become drier, Egypt became a magnet for immigrants from North Africa, Sinai, Palestine, and southern reaches of the Nile. This sounds like a mixture, right? These groups blended with one another to form the population of ancient Egypt, which physically was much the same in antiquity as it is today. Physically much the same in antiquity as it is today. Physically much the same in antiquity as it is today. In the Nile Valley, physical types varied so gradually that differences were perceptible only between places widely separated geographically. Skin color, for example, gradually changed from predominantly tan or olive in the Delta, and we see ancient Egyptians pretty much showcase themselves, demonstrate that themselves, they were very light people. How do we know this? Because they will show the women being very light, and then the men will be red. Why? Because these people are tanning because the men are doing most of the laborious work outside. And it's believed that the women are doing the work indoors and doing childbearing. So they're not tanned. That's why they're depicting the women lighter than the men. But you niggas that belong in the garbage pail of history will get on here and discuss these things and bring all this shit out of context. I know these people are blue black. They're all blue black now. Shut your dumb ass up. Again, skin color, for example, gradually changed from predominantly tan or olive in the Delta to an almost blue-black near the Nile sources. Other physical features varied bit by bit along the same continuum. But such physical differences were not as important to ancient Egyptians as to modern Westerners. Here's the headshot. The Egyptians did distinguish themselves as a group from Libyans, Nubians, Asiatics, and others in artistic representations by emphasizing any differences in facial features and skin tone between these groups and the average Egyptian. However, the main criteria Egyptians used to define themselves relative to others were cultural in nature. Anyone who was born in Egypt, spoke the Egyptian language, and shared the Egyptian culture was an Egyptian, a true person. In the Egyptian language, the same word that meant Egyptian is the same word that means person. Outsiders were all thought to be somewhat inferior, but that was because of their cultures, not their skin colors. Often, skin colors. Foreigners spoke differently, dressed differently, often had a variety of strange beards, wore different hairstyles, and had different customs. To the ancient Egyptians, there was a world of difference between the Egyptian who lived in the Delta and his Libyan or Palestinian neighbors, even though they all might resemble one another physically in the same way. Darker-skinned Egyptian residents of Elephantine were people, while their physically similar Nubian neighbors just to the south were only wretched foreigners. So they didn't view the world through no damn racial lens. Majority of these Egyptians would have looked like modern Egyptians, with tan, olive, right? There are still a variegation. There's still dark Egyptians and lighter Egyptians. We understand that, but the vast majority would have been like tan, olive, or some shit. But to you, you gotta grasp at straws. and say, no, focus on the blue-black images, even though they showed you there was a difference between what they saw a Nubian. Like there's literally Sobek Hotep, I think it was, he married a Nubian. Let me see if I can find that depiction real quick. Sobek Hotep marries a Nubian. And you can clearly see in his image, if I'm remembering this correctly, the Nubian is super duper dark, and the Egyptian is like 10. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and of course I can't find it, but here's a depiction here that's showing the differences. Lighter skin, whatever. Hold on, let me see. Ancient Egyptian marries Nubian. Let me put ancient Egyptian king marries Nubian. I can't even find it. And that just lets you know that they didn't depict themselves the same. They depict themselves vastly different than a Nubian that's super duper dark, right? They gave themselves a slight 10, which is probably in relation to what they actually, their skin tone look like. Not that it matters. Like, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, right? It doesn't. The reason why it doesn't matter is because, again, they can be blue-black like a Nubian. I'm just pointing out that these people will sit up here and take this shit out of context and not be real with the understanding of what's going on. And I can't find that Nubian marriage motif or image, fresco or whatever it was. Well, in that image, I think it's an old image where the king and his queen are vastly different from each other in terms of skin tone. The Nubian is depicted as having jet black skin, and then the Egyptian is like having like slightly brown skin, right? And for some reason, people are like, well, see, this, no, man. First of all, it's an artist depiction, and then y'all not even being real with the artist depiction. They're literally depicting a goddamn contrast. But for some reason, you think the Egyptians are one and the same with Nubians or sub-Saharan Africans in general. Like this is bullshit, and you know it. I can't find it, y'all. So I'm gonna give up on trying to look for it. But anyway, let me stop that share screen here. Ancient Egyptian. Maybe Professor. All right.
Embarrass these two brothers. Embarrass them. This was embarrassing. This was embarrassing. She actually says that according to, oh, and here's another thing that they've said. They tried to say, this is the reason why I didn't end up having a debate with Ngozi yet. Because when I was on the phone with Ngozi, his definition was changing. And I said, Sarnetta, there's no way for us to have a real debate if the definition is going to change. He said in that conversation, the people that lived in that area didn't consider themselves black. And I said, well, brother, I'm not arguing that they did. Now, let me be clear. When I say black in this instance, I'm talking about black as a racial concept. They were able to notice their phenotypic difference from people in Greece, people in Rome, and they commented on those differences. But the concept of race is not one that they considered. It doesn't exist the same way. No one is arguing that their ideas of race are the same as our ideas today. No one is arguing that. But this is what we are arguing. We are arguing that according to today's definition of blackness, the ancient Kemetic people were black. That's it, period. Thesis statement. Thesis statement. Don't try to pretend and say, yeah, brother, but you're not even understanding that they didn't consider themselves black. Boom. That's not a boom. You're saying what I'm saying, but that's irrelevant. After all of these years of Western scholars actually saying that black people did nothing, that black people weren't nothing, that we didn't contribute anything to human civilization, now that we can debunk them, now you want to say that blackness doesn't mean anything. Take a look, for example, at this. These are words from the...
Notice he keeps saying we. He considers himself an Egyptian and considers the Egyptians him. It's that identitarian shit. We just read in the book, that's what they do. That's why they appeal to race.
A man that is considered, even today, the title he usually has, he's usually called the father of American Egyptology. His name is James Henry Breasted. He was the founder of what was called the Oriental Institute in Chicago. The first space in the United States truly dedicated to studying the ancient world and particularly ancient Kemet. He is an extremely important person in the field of Egyptology. In fact, when he gets his degree, he can't even get his degree in the United States. He has to go to Germany to get his degree. And after he gets his degree, he comes back to the United States, and the field of Egyptology in the United States then becomes a thing. But listen to how he describes the Kemetic people in his book, The Conquest of Civilization. He says, the population of the great Northwest quadrant from the Stone Age onward has been a race of white men of varying physical type. The evolution of civilization has been the achievement of this great white race. On the south of the Northwest quadrant lay the teeming black world of Africa. By the way, I want you to notice when he writes great white race, he capitalizes it. I didn't capitalize that. That's what he did. And when he talks about the teeming black world of Africa, it was his choice not to capitalize that. He's telling you something. Let's continue. On the south of the Northwest quadrant lay the teeming black world of Africa, separated by the great white race, capitalization again, by an impassable desert barrier and unfitted by ages of tropical life for any effective intrusion among the white race. His capitalization again. The Negro and Negroid peoples, his lack of capitalization again, remained without any influence on the development of early civilization. This is his argument. This is his argument. So I want you to recognize that these sorts of things that were being said were constantly said about people of African descent. That we had no effect.
Rabble-rousing, getting everybody in their emotions. You still haven't proved that you are an Egyptian, but you keep assuming it. Faulty assumption. Oh, if I put them in the same racial category, then I'm an Egyptian.
Effective intrusion. Well, a number of scholars, most of them in our community, thoroughly refuted the concept that Europeans, that white people, created ancient Kemet. They did such a thorough job that they went to a fallback position. What was the fallback position? Now they're saying, sometimes you will hear some of these old scholars say, well, Egypt was multicultural. That's one thing you'll hear them say. Or they'll say, it was essentially the same ethnic makeup of the people that are there now. That's their fallback position. That's their fallback position.
Like the video, thumb up the video.
We're still on the case, and we're still fighting them. The difference is this. Now
we're fighting them. Yes, I know you're fighting academia. Oh, the modern people, the same modern, the composition of people that are there today. But I thought you didn't agree. I thought you agreed with Cooney. Cooney said that, and you said she agreed with y'all. You telling on your fucking self, man. So you fighting against that now? Oh, we fighting against it. Pseudo ass.
Have people who are UIs, useful idiots, that are trying to make the case for them. And unfortunately, they're the same people that were arguing the same thing that we are arguing just a few months or years ago. What made them change their mind? Did they read something? They need to produce what they read that made them change their mind. They're saying they have new data. I showed you the new data. I showed you what the scholarship is today. And I want you to be clear that the discussion that is occurring is the same discussion that Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark had. See, some of the people who are speaking ill of them never studied with them. They just saw a video on YouTube and they've heard other people tell them what they said. They haven't read any of their books. Do you remember I challenged Garfield once? In fact, it was Garfield and Chief X, I think, at that time. I challenged them to show me one of his books. I said, go to your library and show me at least one of his books. And they never answered. I kept saying, well, since you know so much about what he's done, show me one of his books. Because all you've done is listen to a video on YouTube. I'm telling you that I studied with them. How do you think the little few seconds you're hearing on YouTube trumps someone who studied with them? How can you say that? Can you say that you read their books and they said that what I'm saying is incorrect? Of course not. We have to call them out for what they're doing. So let's show you one of the clips that was created by Dr. Karakuni in her discussion with Garfield. And I want you to be clear. Notice he has all these white scholars on again. You know why he has them on, right?
Yeah.
Black History Month.
Crazy.
What happened to this brother? Did he have a stroke or an aneurysm or something and he just got confused? Should we be sending him flowers and condolences or something? What happened to him? I want you to listen to her. First of all, talk about why the people who live there today look differently. And I might even play a clip of my conversation with that same dude that came on, that's a modern Egyptian. Remember when he came on when I was doing my presentation on Black Kemet, Son Netter, and he wanted to argue? And I kept saying, if you were going to talk, you're going to have to stop and we're going to have to listen to each other. I kept saying that. But you said, Son Netter, Jabari, why aren't you telling him that those are not his people? And I said, Son Netter, I may not be able to tell him that. Because first of all, you have to understand, I'm not suggesting that everybody that was in ancient Kemet, this whole black mass of people moved when these foreign people came in. Part of what happened is there were some people who moved. And we know this because when civilizations fall, there are usually great migrations. What I want you to understand, I'm not arguing that everyone was supplanted. What happened is you had lots of foreign people come in and they intermarried with people and they increased the population. So I'm not saying everyone that is there now has the blood of the ancients in them, but I'm saying that there's some people that don't look black, that if you did their DNA, you'd see something a little different.
Oh, yeah, Jabari. Yeah. And we do your DNA, we don't see shit with no ancient Egypt. We do fucking we do genetic analysis of African Americans, we don't see nothing. Senegalese people, where Sekou comes from, fucking Diop follower. We don't see no goddamn traces of no damn ancient Egypt. We don't see no large influx of no ancient Egyptian in your genome. He said some, no, majority of ancient Egyptians, a majority of modern Egyptians connect to ancient Egyptians. Majority. And that's what Cooney said. But again, you on camera saying she agreed with you. Shut your dumb ass up.
If you looked at my 8th great grandfather, he wouldn't have this same mocha latte complexion I have. He wouldn't. My complexion is the result of admixture, and I'm being polite. Let's be clear. My complexion is the result of the rape of African women during enslavement. I don't call those people my ancestors that did that heinous act to women in my lineage, but that's why I look partially the way I do today.
And that shows you're not a scholar, because you're going off your feelings and opinions. It's not about, oh, I don't call them. You don't have to call an ancestor. They're still your fucking ancestors. Whether you recognize it or not, that's what's wrong with y'all. This is why you guys are always making shit up. Because whatever you don't like, you ignore it. And you twist and distort it.
So we know that with admixture, so one's phenotype, the phenotype of descendants will change. Especially if there's admixture from people that look radically different than the people that were already there. This is not a surprising argument. So when you said to me, Sonnetter, why won't you tell them those aren't his people? I said, I'd have to see a DNA sample to know better. Because looking at him, I said, I believe that he may actually have some DNA from some of the people that were there in the ancient world. Does he look like them? No. That's because he has much more DNA from people from outside now. That's the argument that we should be explaining to people. I'm not saying every African in Kemet, as soon as the Greeks came, said, well, show's over, and they all left. That's not what I'm saying. But when you have the Persians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, the Romans, when you have all the Arabs, when you have all of these groups come in, the population changes. So let's listen to Dr. Karakuni say exactly that. Let's listen to her say exactly that. The same argument that I made in the conference.
No, she didn't say the Arabs and all that other shit. See, he gonna cut just that part out. She said from the Bronze Age collapse, which is like 1300 BCE onward. That's why they got lighter. That's what she said. Watch him. He gonna cut that out. But before we even get to that and let him distort what she actually said, let's go back to his modern Egyptian argument. Remember, segment B of this chart here, of this depiction here, is literally showing you how modern Egyptians relate to the old kingdom Egyptian sample. It gets as high as 75%. And all of these samples are related to older Egyptians or older North Africans. All of them. These red and green segments are the segments of the DNA that are related to the old Egyptian. So majority of the people are connected to ancient Egyptians. The majority of the ancient Egyptians. Guess what we're going to find in majority of African Americans? I'm going to tell you what we're not going to fucking find. A link to the ancient Egyptians. We don't fucking see that. Again, the red and green segments are your ancient Egyptian, which are the red segments, and the green segments are your ancient North African. Majority of these people fit the bill. Majority. So anyway, back to this damn Sood Fest.
Conversation with that, with the modern Egyptian, just a little bit earlier. Take a look. Let's see. Maybe I should try to share it as a video. Let's see if I can. Maybe that'll even make it clearer, Sonnetter. And you are right to put up that fair use.
Copyright disclaimer under section 107.
Yep.
Of the Copyright Act of 1976. All right. So that's our copyright disclaimer. We are teaching fair use. And that's where we stand. Brother Jabari, what you got?
Listen to this. You got it? Can you put it up top?
I don't see nothing yet.
It's there as a video.
Egyptian people are so beautiful because heterogeneity. Why Egyptian people are so beautiful because heterogeneity is shown to make a more symmetrical face. But it's just a lot of mixture. And then one could ask the question, did the ancient Egyptian phenotype of skin color, which seems to be something people are very interested in, change through time? And the answer would, of course, be yes, because Egypt is occupied so many times after the Bronze Age by different types of people, starting with the Bronze Age collapse. And you get all these sea peoples coming in from across the Mediterranean, northern Mediterranean, Greek mainland, places like that. You're going to make Egyptian lighter, at least in the north, but probably in the south too. And then you're going to get an invasion from, or an occupation from Ptolemaic peoples in the 3rd and 4th centuries. That is going to make BC, you make Egyptian lighter in a sense. And then you're going to get the Arab invasion, and you're going to have that occupation from West Asia. You're just going to bring in another admixture. You're not like changing the population, but you are creating a different mixture within the population. And how you track that? I mean, good luck with genetic tests. But that was a lot. That was a lot. So
I want you to hear that is what I have said. You heard me say it. Does that make me an expert?
Good point. Good point. But what you should have did was cut your pieces out too. What you saying that?
Oh, I did.
Oh,
come on now. Here is now. Listen, I say it all the time, so I did not cut every piece out. But take a look. I'll show you me responding to the modern Egyptian, and even you challenging me a little bit, going, Brother Jabari, why you're not saying this to him? Listen to my response to Nader. Take a listen. Now this is before Karakuni. I had this conversation before this Sunday, right? Listen. You got it, Son Nader? Go ahead. Ancient Africa. I will. Is it stopping for a reason?
Yeah, I pulled it all the way back.
About ancient Africa. I will clearly say to you that some groups on the continent have an admixture of some people from outside of Africa and some people within Africa. So what I would love for you to do, for us to have a fuller conversation, is I would love to see your DNA analysis. Have you done one?
No, I haven't. I don't need to prove it to anybody.
Okay. No, I'm not. Listen.
My culture goes back thousands of years. I don't need to prove it to anybody, including myself.
Okay. But when you speak like that, it sounds like fanaticism, because the reality is,
yes,
Nader, you have to stop.
Why?
I listened to you. I did not interrupt you.
Okay, but you're asking me a question.
And you answered the question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You answered the question. You just don't get to talk forever. So what I'm saying to you is, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to leave.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
So as we have this dialogue, we're all trying to reach back 3,000 to 5,000 years. And the knowledge that we have about ourselves may not be well-based, because the detail that we're looking for is so aged. And so in order for us to have a fuller conversation, I would love for you to be able to give us some analysis of what you are saying. If you're making a comment, this is in this environment, when you make a comment, you have to back it with something. So you can't just say, I don't need to prove it to anyone, because then you're in the wrong conversation. Then you would need to go to the neighborhood bar and have that kind of conversation. But in a scholarly environment, if you are going to come in here and make a claim, it must be backed by some sources.
Jabari, why are you not telling him that those are not his ancestors?
Because the reality is this, Son Nader. Listen to what I'm saying. And I said this in the beginning. They may be. When I look at that guy right there, he has African ancestry.
North Africa.
He won't do any DNA. Listen, but he won't do any DNA study. So that's why I asked him about it. And I knew he was going to say no. I knew that he said he hadn't done it. Because the reality is, all of
the stupidity, and this dude got the same skin color that we see on the damn walls. You know what I'm saying? We did, all that was showing people tanning. But also, I want to bring up this. You are telling him to get a DNA test to see how he connects with ancient Egypt. So I'm assuming your bitch ass got a DNA test. So show your DNA test and see how it relates to Egypt. I guarantee you that his DNA test does not relate to Egypt at all. I guarantee you that his goddamn DNA. Somebody says Banoob is Mexican. I don't know who that is. This dude, oh boy, I know who it is. Dr. Banoob. Anyway, I guarantee that Jabari DNA consists of 3 major components: European, West and Central African, and Native American. None of it is European, is Egyptian. You know, you might at the most have North African and like 1% like I do. None of it's going to point to no goddamn Egyptian. It's not going to look like an Egyptian's ancestry. That's the issue. But you press him, oh, do your DNA test. Do your DNA test.
of us have admixtures. If you go to my, and I said this during my presentation, if you go to my fifth great grandfather,
You don't know my culture.
he's going to look radically.
You don't know my culture.
He's going to look
You don't know
radically.
my culture.
He's going to look radically different than I do because I have other DNA within me. And so what I want him to do in order to have a fuller conversation is a DNA analysis so we can really have a conversation. That is how we'd be able to have a better based conversation. But that's just the reality. If he's not willing to do that, it's hard for us to prove any points or to make any cases because one of us is using sources and the other one is using belief. So if that's where we are, there's almost no room for what he's talking about. And he's saying that I don't know Coptic culture. Well, I would argue to you that you probably know Coptic culture better than I do, but I know Kemetic culture better than you do. And Coptic culture and Kemetic culture is radically different. It's radically different.
Hold on 1 minute. Time out. Everybody, time out.
So what I want you to do is hear me say, I didn't tell him, you're an interloper. You're not from there. I mean, because that's an overly simplistic argument. The reality is, looking at him, I would not be surprised if he does have some ancient DNA. But his phenotype has changed radically because of the influx of people from outside of Africa. That's what we're saying. And you know what? If he would actually say, I don't know why you're saying this, I'm black too, we would have a completely different argument. This would be an interesting conversation. But instead he's saying, I'm not black, I'm not African, and I'm the ancient people. That's what he's saying. So we have a lot of work to do in understanding this argument. Let's go to the next clip from Dr. Cooney, because you've now heard her explain the different admixtures, just as I did.
Egyptian people are so beautiful.
No, not that one. Not that one. I haven't put, that's the first one that's still there. I don't know why it's like that, but I'm going to put a new one in. And as we go to her, what you're going to hear her now, and I'm going to say this very clearly, because some of this might be too complicated to you, right? Some of this might be too complicated for you. Listen to her make it plain. She is literally going to say the ancient Kemetic people were black by today's standards. That is what she's going to say.
There you go. There you go.
She's not going to stutter. She's not going to say something other than black. She's not going to get newfangled and use a different word that means black. These people were ebony. No, she's going to say black. And I don't know how people watching didn't see it. This is probably what Sekou saw, and when he said, Jabari, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to go. He was almost telling me, I know you're in Kemetic Ascension, brother, but, cut it short. Because you're going to just fall on your floor for the rest of Sunday. And he was right. So take a look at what, and by the way, let me just respond to what someone said. Kwaku DID said, the modern Egyptians are the closest genetic relatives of the ancient Egyptians. What am I going to say to him? It's interesting you've made that thesis, brother. Where is your source material?
Yeah, you can easily look. He disagrees with that, but Cooney said that. But you're saying she agreed with you. She literally said that, and I showed the source material. This again. I'm gonna show you again. There it is. Boom. Modern Egyptians. B on this demonstration here represents modern Egyptians. Okay, I can go down here and read it to you. B is the alternative 2-source, 3-source model passing or supporting supplementary table. Right here. Ancestry. B is the ancestry proportion of present-day Egyptian genomes for the best fit model, QP atom. And as you can see, the majority of the components are either red or green, and it's shared through every sample of the modern population available. There it is for this study. And what paper is this? Let's go back. We're in a segment of the ancestry in later Egypt. Whole genome ancestry of an old kingdom Egyptian. Whoop, there it is. Whoop, there it is. What's your source for that? Yeah, when you're talking to them idiots over there on Sinetta, they ain't got sources. A work said, according to genetics, Tutankhamun had European genetics. According to his DNA, he would be R1b, which is usually associated with Eurasian men. So I guess whatever, however you want to take that. So yeah, European men do have it. The point is, it's from outside of Africa. But these people claim King Tut. Oh, King Tut. Oh, get out of here, man. Anyway, where's your source for that? We got plenty of sources showing that the modern, there was a paper that just came out this year too. Where is it? Right here. Share this tab. Here's the paper here. Oh, where's your source for that? Look, the origin of modern North Africans are as depicted by a massive survey of mitogenomes, genomes, which is the female mediated genome. Basically, the ancestry that's passed down from the mothers to their offspring. And again, it says our analysis based on geographic and demographic approach suggests that the mitogenome variability in North African populations can be traced back to three main regions: Eurasia, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa, and has been defined during crucial key time periods, from Paleolithic to the last millennia. In particular, we identified a signal for population movements from Sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa. The unfavorable climatic period of the Green Sahara provided evidence from complete mitogenomes. The human dispersal associated with this period also involved females. Again, mitogenome. So we're going to go down here to give you a depiction of that. So we're going to open this up. I want this to be large. So this tab instead, as you can see, pre-Neolithic. Before the Neolithic, you had people coming in from West Asia, people coming in from Europe. So no, the idea of later migrations being the reason why populations look, no, they have always had this admixture, and this is why North Africans in general are a split off from the Middle Eastern or Eurasian. They're literally a sister branch of Middle Eastern or Eurasian peoples. Then we have the last Green Sahara. These dotted lines mean hypothetical migrations. We do know these migrations happen at some capacity, but not a major capacity. And we even see Sub-Saharan African DNA going into Spain. We see more DNA going in this direction than we see going into Egypt. Majority of Egypt, what we can find, has been heavily Eurasian. And it's because the pre-Neolithic, last Green Sahara, pre-Neolithic, we see Asian, West Asian and European DNA dump into, and people dump into North Africa. In the Neolithic period, same thing. Same exact thing, in situ differentiation. They're starting to develop their own branches. These Eurasian people have been there so long, they're starting to develop their own branches of their specific markers. And then we see from 5KYA, which is the desiccation of the desert, we see even more people dumping into present from Europe and Western Asia. All right, that's another fucking source. How many sources we got to get? How many sources we got to get? So let's share this. The analysis revealed that modern North African mitogenomes numbering at 733 cluster into 622 different haplotypes, showing a value of haplotype diversity of 0.9993, similarly to the results previously obtained on control region sequence of the Berber population. The high haplotype variability is also correlated with the identification of a high number of haplogroups and sub-haplogroups, most of which are members of typical Western Eurasian branches. So majority of these women are of the Eurasian variety. HHVIJKN1, just like we saw I in the Old Kingdom Egyptian, his maternal DNA is haplogroup I. JKN1R0AT0 TUW and X, observed at a frequency between 62.6% in Tunisia and 88.7% in Libya. A significant number of typical autochthonous North African clades, 45 out of 368 specifically. And then here's the clades here. This is what it meant by in situ differentiation. These clades developed in North Africa, although they come from outside of North Africa. Were also detected with high frequency between 15.4% in Algeria and 4.4% in Egypt. Lastly, sub-Saharan haplogroups within macro haplogroup L encompass the remaining clades with frequencies spanning from 26.5% in Tunisia, 3.2% in Libya. The frequency data of modern mitogenomes analyzed and published ancient North African mitogenomes were compared in figure 2. However, the latter data set, for the sake of clarity, will be discussed later. And as you can see, here's your ancient subjects we got here. Egyptian, all Eurasian. Albeit we got 2 samples here, but all of it's Eurasian. Tunisia, 13. All of it's Eurasian except 1. And this is after 5,000 years ago, right? So this is after the desiccation of the Sahara, when it became the Sahara Desert. You see a heavy Eurasian presence in these regions. So between 10 to 5,000 years, post-Neolithic, right? Libya is still Eurasian. Morocco is primarily Eurasian. See all these colors here fit Eurasian and North African. The pink is North African. Reddish color is North African. The rest of the colors, the blues, the browns, the pink, the tans, the dark green, forest green, to the light lime green, to the gray, all Eurasian. And in Morocco, before 10,000 years ago, North African, but we know U6N1 ultimately comes from Eurasia. Anyway, overall, the typical autochthonous component accounts for a minor proportion of North African modern mitogenomes, while the Eurasian one plays a major role, albeit the qualitative and quantitative differences from population to population. For this reason, the mitochondrial DNA gene pool of single North African populations may be closer to that of Western Eurasian populations. This is well illustrated in the graph of the first two principal components shown in Figure 3, where North African groups are located at various distances between Western Eurasian populations without forming a distinctive cluster. The Eurasian component is the largest contributor to the North African variability, comprising more than half of the lineages described in the region. Now, again, we know these are not invaders because these are women, and typically invaders are largely male. You goddamn imbeciles. Anyway, so then it shows how these different samples cluster with each other. Then it goes into the Eurasian component in North Africa. North African populations show a high frequency of haplogroups of Eurasian origin that potentially diffuse in the area at different times from three main sources: Western Europe through the Gibraltar Strait, the Middle East via the Sinai Peninsula and Mediterranean basin by sea. The 5 North African populations analyzed in our data set confirm this trend with at least 68% of the mitochondrial DNA variability represented by Eurasian clades. There go your ancient Egyptians. Considering the multiple sources contributed to the diffusion of these lineages in North Africa, the Eurasian component in its totality appears almost equally frequent from west to east. So from the west, North Africa to east, North Africa to Egypt, all the way to Morocco. 62.6% to 71.8%, with only exception being represented by the Libyan population with the highest value of 88.7% of Eurasian clades. However, if we take into consideration one by one the haplogroups that make up the Eurasian component, the scenario changes. We can observe 4 different trends. Haplogroups with frequencies decreasing from the west to east, haplogroups with frequencies decreasing from east to west, haplogroups with frequency peaks in central North Africa and decreasing declines at both sides, and 4 haplogroups equally represented in the whole area. The first group is the most frequent in our data set, includes haplogroups mainly diffused in Western Europe, such as H. In particular, H1 and H3 observed with frequency peaks in Western North Africa, Morocco or Algeria, lower frequencies in the eastern edge of Egypt, except for Libya, that despite being in the center of North Africa shows a high percentage of both clades. A similar trend was observed for haplogroup HV0 and V that are present in Northwest Africa and not observed in Tunisia, Libya, or Egypt. Haplogroups H, HVO, V reach North Africa mainly via the Strait of Gibraltar, as suggested by the geographical distribution across Eurasia and as already envisioned by previous studies. The second group, with frequency decline from east towards the west, includes HV1 with a peak at 2.9% in Egypt and not detected in Morocco, T with 19.3% in Egypt, then decreasing towards Western N1, and N1, which reaches 5.2% in Egypt. Both HV1 and N1 most likely originated in the Near East, in the East. So we know where these people come from. They've been in Egypt for a minute, as well as haplogroup T, together with its sister clade J, and they all move towards Europe, North Africa, and even Sub-Saharan Africa. As for haplogroup N1, they're in both the pre- and Neolithic periods, as well as in more recent times. Pre- and Neolithic, so we're talking about 10,000 years, even before 10,000 years. These women were on the move in these regions. Haplogroup T includes a subclade, namely T1A7, which was previously identified as typical of North African regions. In our comprehensive phylogeny, it encompasses 8 mitogenomes, 6 from Egypt and 2 from Algerian Berbers, and represent a direct link between the Near East and North Africa due to the detection of mitogenomes in the Arabian Peninsula, Israel, Iraq, and Lebanon descending from the clade root, meaning the ancestral women. That's where they come from, outside of Africa. Haplogroup X, despite being quite rare in Europe, reaches significant frequencies in North Africa, especially in Egypt, where it is present in the 7.4% of the population. with a decline towards the west with 3.6% in Tunisia and 2.3% in Algeria, but it was not observed in Morocco and shows an intermediate frequency of 1.6% in Libya. Finally, the rare haplogroups I and W are thought to have similar history to much more frequent J and T, even if haplogroup I is particularly represented in Morocco at 2.9%. The third group includes haplogroup K, which shows its highest frequency in Tunisia. Again, we're reading about these Eurasians and the influence of North African people and the introgression of North African people. Come on now. Totally different from what Diop said. Totally different from what Jabari just got done saying out his goddamn mouth. Oh, show me the source. Here's the fucking source. These people have been here pre-Neolithic and Neolithic. That's long before dynastic Egypt. North Africa was already highly Eurasian. Before the onset of dynastic Egypt. The third group includes haplogroup K, which shows the highest frequency in Tunisia and decline at both eastern and western sides. A similar trend can be observed also for haplogroup U, including its subclades from U1 to U8, with the exception of North African U6, with a peak of 9.1% in Algeria and a slight decline in other regions, again with the exception of Libya, showing the highest value of 12.9%, mainly due to an excess of characteristics European haplogroup U5, which is the same goddamn haplogroup we found in Upper Egypt 4,000 years ago. We found a European haplogroup, meaning the descendant of a European group of women in Upper Egypt 4,000 years ago. That kills every damn thing you guys believe in. The fourth group of haplogroups identify those equally represented in the whole of North African region is not well represented in our data set, with only haplogroup J ranging from about 3 to 4.4% in Western, Central, and Eastern North Africa. Haplogroup 0A, originating in the Arabian Peninsula, is most frequent in Arabia and in the Horn of Africa, and also present in our data set, though it does not show a frequency decline in east to west as previously reported. Indeed, although it reaches a frequency peak of 6.4% in Libya, it maintains significant occurrence in all regions. And again, if we go back to the chart up here, the ancient samples, remember, R0A has its origin in Arabia, right? R0A is the dark green color here. Where do we see it here? Represented in Tunisia after 5,000 years ago, and also represented in Morocco between 10 and 5,000 years ago. So these women of Eurasian origin were already in these regions long before dynastic Egypt. So this idea of, oh no, these are people and they're invaders. No, that's a fucking lie. You're wrong. You're emphatically wrong. All right, let's go back to the bullshit segment.
I'm going to tell you what Dr. Clark said to me. Brother, you have to earn an opinion. Don't just spout off flights of fancy. I don't know if you're in the bar typing that or on the bowl typing that. To prove it.
Or the poll.
To prove it. Or where?
Or the poll.
to prove it, you need to show some sources. And the other challenge with the genetic information is anyone should do this. Ask yourself, what are they comparing and from when? This is why I went through that long example in my last presentation. If you looked at the DNA analysis of Boston for the last 200 years, and you tried to say that that genetic diversity, that genetic profile in a very popular city of the United States was now representative of the rest of the United States, you would say that the Americans come from Ireland. That's what you would say. Because a large number of people in Boston come from Ireland and Scotland. This is a particular hub where people went to. Are they representative of the United States? And what period are you looking at? What if you did a DNA profile today in 2024 and then said, this tells us what the Native Americans look like? Every one of you would be laughing out loud. But that's precisely what some of these DNA studies do. Read the paper.
No, they don't. They don't do that. You're being disingenuous. When you read the paper, it's telling you when these gene flows occur, when these people get into these lands. That's what it tells you. So your analogous scenario about, oh, if you test people in Boston and they'll go back to Ireland, and that would then mean you would say that Native Americans were from Ireland. That's fucking false. No paper does shit like that. You fucking idiot. As we just read the paper, it meticulously breaks down each component and where each component goes back to, and it gives you the time frames. This component comes before the Neolithic. This component comes during the Neolithic. This component comes after the Neolithic. This is the type of bullshit you get on Sinetta TV. And it's clear Jabari doesn't read scientific literature, because no scientific literature worth its salt would phrase anything of that sort. You fucking dumbass. So again, when we went to this paper here, and this is why I cuss so goddamn much, because you hear stupid shit like this. What does this say? Right? Whole genome ancestry of an old kingdom Egyptian. So we got the time period right here. Moron. Up to date, July 2nd, 2025, by the way. And it will tell you when these segments of DNA or ancestries come into play. This thing is dated older than 4,500. This person is dated older than 4,500 years ago. And what does it say here? This genetic affinity is similar to an ancestry appearing in Anatolia and Levant during the Neolithic and Bronze Age. Giving you time periods. So no, you would not find a goddamn scientific paper that would be like, oh, well, these people are Johnny come latelys, and we're not going to mention anything about time. And that accounts for 20% of his DNA coming from the Fertile Crescent. The issue is you don't like what the paper is saying. That's the issue. You don't like what the scientific paper and the data is spelling out for you. That these people are highly admixed. These people are highly related to Levantine peoples. Literally what this paper says. Literally. So we're going to go right back to it and go to the ancestry of the Neurite genome. And go down, go down, go down. And it says clearly, all accepted QPI models showed the presence of ancestry related to Neolithic Morocco in the Neurite genome. Therefore, our results could indicate shared ancestry across North Africa during this period. Basically, during this time period, majority of North Africans had a similar ancestral genome. And it says, and consequently, that local Egyptian Neolithic populations contributed genetically to the early dynastic and Old Kingdom people, as indicated from the material culture and bioarchaeological analysis. However, because the genomes from the Middle Neolithic Morocco have previously been modeled to comprise both Ibero-Mauritian-like. And you're, oh, why you always cuss? This is why I cuss. Because I actually do read these goddamn papers. You don't. You blowing smoke. You blowing smoke up everybody's goddamn skirt. That's what you're doing. You don't read this shit. None of you niggas do. It says in Levantine Neolithic ancestry components, Jabari, this is an old kingdom Egyptian that's older than 4,500 years ago, going to early dynastic Egypt. And during the early dynastic Egyptian period, we have a person here that has DNA connecting him to Levantine Neolithic ancestry components. Neolithic, new stone. That's within the last 10,000. We're going into the Holocene period. And it says, which we corroborated, meaning the data they have here supports the other papers about North African ancestry being tied to Levantine Neolithic ancestry. It says the affinity to Levantine Neolithic groups could reflect several migration events. This is what the papers actually say. How many videos I got to make of what papers say and what you bullshitters say? This is why I got to use harsh language. I can't speak no other way in regards to suits like Jabari and Sekou and Jonathan Smashwell, however you say his damn name. Rock Smashwell. Anyway, so again, we go to data 6, extended data 6. Again, we clearly show this. right here. Nirot 001, that's the Egyptian. He has Zagros Neolithic ancestry from the Caucasus, right, which will fit with the Mesopotamian. The green component is Morocco Epipaleolithic, so Old North African, and the rest is Levantine Neolithic ancestry. This is why y'all lose to me in debates. While you bullshitting, I'm actually revealing the data. While you making racial fucking claims, I'm actually showing you the true ancestry of these people. Now, how does modern Egyptians relate to this ancient old kingdom Egyptian? I will show you how they relate right here. Went over this chart 1,000 times tonight. Y'all gonna keep seeing it. Recapitulation is good, actually. The green and red components, the green is North African, old North African, and the red is ancient Egyptian. As you can see, these people are clearly descendants of old North Africans and ancient Egyptians. These are your modern Egyptian population, by the way. That's what we're looking at. There's your data, there's your source, there's your point. Fucking emphatically wrong. And you misrepresented Cooney because Cooney told your ass that 70% of the modern Egyptian population is related to the ancient ones. Garbage.
If you're going to be a read the paper. Don't just look at the headline that you see on some website. They're going to link to a paper. If you really want to read the paper and you can't get access, call me, because I'll use my university credits to get it for you. Some of these papers, and I can't even blame them, some of these papers you can't get access to. You got to pay $300, $400. I'll either use my University of Chichester credentials or my Hunter credentials. So when it comes to the papers, I read them all. I read them all. Don't come with me with those statements without having something back it. If you're going to do that, I'm going to call you on it and tell you this is not the place for your flights of fantasy and your tomfoolery. Because that's what you sound like. Let's go. Let's listen to Dr. Cara Clooney describe the ancient Kemetic people as, let's be really clear what she's going to do. She's going to describe the ancient Kemetic people as Black by today's standards. Okay, I just put it up there, Sonetta. Go.
Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that the ancient Egyptians were not Black, as we Americans perceive it. They were. The way we define Black with mixed race, one drop rule, the way we define Black as a positive thing, the Egyptians were.
You heard what she said, mixed race, one drop rule, like what she said in the beginning of the video, but he missed that part. It's because we're applying the mixed race, one drop rule. But so in the one drop rule, it says if you have one Black ancestor, someone look Black or whatever, boom, boom, then you're Black. That's what she's explaining. But this nigga took this shit out of context and clipped this part. Oh, she agrees with us. She said that 70% of the modern Egyptians are related to ancient Egyptians. You don't agree with that. She brought up that trying to make ancient Egypt all Black is a negative aspect of patriarchy. She brought that up. She basically ripped racial ideology apart. But in your damn pea brain sized brain, you can't compute that. Everything has to conform to your damn ideology, conform to your doctrine of Black people having to come from goddamn Egypt. You believe you came from fucking Egypt. Sekou believe he came from Egypt, and Smash fucking Rockwell believes he came from Egypt. So you're not going to listen to this person with an unbiased ear. You're trying to twist and distort shit she said to fit your damn narrative.
Black. Not maybe all of them according to our definition, but certainly most of them. And if you go to modern day Egypt today and you go to a place like Luxor down in the south, you'll be like, these people are Black in our definition, our American definition of what Black is, Jamaican definition of what Black.
Woo!
Sonetta.
Come on, man.
You got to play that again. Let's just play it again.
Egypt. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that the ancient Egyptians were not Black, as we Americans perceive it. They were. The way we define Black with mixed race, one drop rule, the way we define Black as a positive thing.
With mixed race, one drop rule. Those were her words. And these motherfuckers didn't even bat an eye. Didn't even say what she meant by that. That's the issue.
the Egyptians were black. Not maybe all of them according to our definition, but certainly most of them. And if you go to modern day Egypt today and you go to a place like Luxor down in the south, you'll be like, these people are black in our definition, our American definition of what black is, Jamaican definition of what black.
I want you to hear what she said. By the way, to make it make sense for Garfield, she even said the Jamaican definition.
Wow.
Did you hear her say that?
Yeah.
The Jamaican definition, she says. Because she's like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure if you really get this. Maybe you are confused because you think I'm talking about something in the United States and ain't been here that long. By the way, Garfield has been there long enough to know what the heck she's trying to say. He has been there long enough to know what she is trying to say. So the reality is this. We have to simply listen to what people are saying. And when you listen to what they're saying, the quote unquote experts, the people that they want you to listen to over us, they're saying what we've said. And you know, I'm going to say something else. If I was saying it, I would have given you more sources that she did. If Smash was going to say it, he'd have showed it to you, the source, and showed you the language. Reggie too. And you already know what Sekou would have done. Sekou has read the greats. He's going to give you quotes from the greats that I forgot 20 years ago. This brother has an encyclopedic memory for the writings of our great ancestors.
Let me show you what they say here. And I know y'all like, I don't want to listen to this nigga cussing. Anyway, she said right here, I pulled the transcript up. It says here, it says problematic. Here's problematic. That's problematic in and of itself, but start with that right now. Then attach that to the United States understanding of blackness, in which people were brought against their will in large number to act as unpaid labor to find the country of the United States of America with their bodies. Yes, that the way of separating populations, saying these people are enslaved and these people own them, or these people are the population was separated in such a way that we created things very cruel social systems in the United States, like the one drop rule, with which both of you and everybody listening is very familiar, that you just need one small part of being black, and then you're all black right now. You go to talk to an African person, particularly North African person, say, oh, are these people black? And they'll be like, well, first, we don't like that word, and please don't use that word. So she broke this down in the beginning in her diatribe, that we use the one drop rule. We invoke the one drop rule against other groups like the Egyptians. See, these people have mixed hair. She said most of them are mixed. And since y'all consider mixed people black, then according to your American understanding, they will be black. You took it out of context. Oh, see, that's what she's saying. No, she's not. Phenotype really don't mean shit, but y'all really mischaracterized it and got her out of out of pocket on that one. Like you misrepresented her. It goes on to say right here, in the 8-minute mark, it says here, problematics of what patriarchy does. Well, the African community says that, and I'll add to this in the very problematics of what patriarchy does when it tries to claim a culture. When patriarchy goes in and tries to claim a culture, they say, oh, Egypt is all black, or Egypt is all this and that and those. Patriarchal claims those more old school 1970s, 1980s Afrocentric claims. 1970s and 1980s Afrocentric claims. She's castigating this shit. Do not go over well in Egypt, because then Egyptians, and you'll know, you can go on social media and see people lose their minds, are like, they're stealing our culture. How dare they steal our culture? This is death of culture. So if one coming from the African American's perspective could understand the charged word black in Arabic, that would be helpful. If they can understand imposing a post-colonial one-drop rule that is created in America is a very American chattel, chattel slavery created thing, then I think there will be a better communication between both sides, because my answer, if I'm going to be going back in time and getting a time machine to answer your question for you, which is where the ancient Egyptian blacks, I would say that the definition of black, and we use the word African. I mean, all ancient Egyptians are African, but Egypt is confused in place because it's on the crossroads of the three worlds: the African world, the Mediterranean world, and the Levantine West Asian world. And Egypt is there for the people to cross the Sinai and go from West Asia to North Africa. Egypt is there on the Mediterranean for people to connect from Greece and the Italian peninsula and beyond into Egypt. And Egypt is there in Africa to connect with the rest of the massive biggest continent that we have on our planet Earth. And so there's a lot of mixing. So when people get into Egypt, Are they African? Well, they're African now because they're there, but it means that throughout the 1,000 years that Egypt has been considered a state, or before you had a state of Egypt, you already had a tremendous amount of mixing between peoples of different ethnic backgrounds, different genetic codes, just a lot of mixing. It's why Egyptian people are so beautiful, because heterogeneity is shown to make a more symmetrical face. But it's just a lot of mixture. And then one could ask the question, did the ancient Egyptian phenotype of skin color, which seems to be something people are very interested in, change through time? And the answers would, of course, be yes, because Egypt, and then he brings that out. So when you go back and analyze what she actually fucking said, this is what she was pointing to. If you use our understanding of perception here in the States in the Western mindset, which includes the one drop rule. Oh, well, these people do have black ancestors and therefore they're black. That's what she was explaining. But you wouldn't get that context by listening to that little clip. You got to go watch the fucking video. Fucking spin masters, man. Breakdancing and shit. Doing windmills. This is what you get on Sinetta. A bunch of garbage ass niggas. But the people love it. The people love it. Anyway. Wait, hold on. Let me get the last time she mentioned it, which is the segment he cut out here. He says, and she even restates this shit. Matter of fact, let me just go to it. The patriarchy. Just goofy, man.
To keep their patriarchal power. And so patriarchy is right now having a resurgence. It's why women don't have control over their bodies in half of the states in the United States. It's trying to control women and children. It's trying to control other men. It's also trying to control history. It's creating a founding fathers in the United States mythology that never existed, but is perfected and idealized. And I think that patriarchy in African-American Black communities can also be misused such that you can look at African history and say, well, we did Egypt. Now, don't misunderstand.
You heard that? He cut that part out. He cut that part out. Did you hear what she said before? What he cut out?
But is perfected and idealized. And I think that patriarchy in African-American Black communities can also be misused such that you can look at African history and say, well, we did Egypt. Now,
we did Egypt. It's misused. Why? Because you're using this race thing, the one drop rule. Oh, they us. It says here, idealize, and I think that patriarchy in African-American Black communities can also be misused such that you can look at African history and say, we did Egypt. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying the ancient Egyptians were not Black as we Americans perceive. That's the key word. If they were the way we define Black with mixed race, because she obviously understands that Egyptians were heavily mixed, like she said earlier. But we consider people of mixed race Black, right? So that comes from our perception. Listening is a skill. If they were the way we define Black with mixed race, one drop rule, the way we define Black as a positive thing, the Egyptians were Black. Not maybe all of them, according to our definition, but certainly most of them. And if you go to modern day Egypt today and you go to a place like Luxor down in the South, you'll be like, these people are Black in our definition, our American definition of what Black is. A Jamaican definition of what Black is. Yes, they are. But when you then use the patriarchal concepts of all or nothing, they are all ours and not yours. Then you get into these fights about who owns the land, who owns the culture, who owns the past. And those fights can be very bitter, very problematic. And we don't need to be having them because we're all everything. My own genetics test showed that I have 5% Coptic Egyptian. Why he didn't play the rest of this fucking clip? This is why I cuss so goddamn much. Why he didn't play the rest of it? Because these niggas love spinning shit. Masters of omission. Spin masters, man. Nigga was doing all type of motherfucking windmills on the cardboard. Breakdancing and shit. That's what she was saying.
Misunderstand me. I am not saying that the ancient Egyptians were not Black as we Americans perceive it. They were.
As we Americans perceive it. based off the mixed race concept, based off the one drop goddamn rule. She made herself fucking abundantly clear. And she said it's problematic for y'all to say that we made Egypt. He cut that shit out. He's like, I can't let that play. And this is what dogmatic religious and ideologues do all the goddamn time. They cut out everything that fucking slices their fucking ideas into pieces.
The way we define black with mixed race one drop rule.
Mixed race one drop rule. He kept that part in and hoped everybody didn't hear that shit.
The way we define black as a positive thing. The Egyptians were black. Not maybe all of them according to our definition, but certainly most of them. And if you go to modern day Egypt today and you go to a place like Luxor down in the south, you'll be like, these people are black in our definition, our American definition of what black is, Jamaican definition of what black is. Yes, they are. But when you then use these patriarchal concepts of all or nothing, you know, they're all ours and not yours, then you.
And this is what these niggas do. They're all ours and not yours.
Get into these fights about who owns land, who owns culture, who owns the past. And those fights can be very bitter and very problematic. And we don't need to be having them because we're all everything. My own genetic test showed that I have 5% Coptic.
Well, looking at the DNA aspect, we don't need to be having them because we're all everything. We're all mixed up people. And she says, well, I'm 5% Coptic. So she's more Egyptian than any of you fucking niggas. VM.
Egyptian from my mother's Italian Greek side, which is kind of cool and crazy. Do I go out there and claim that I'm Egyptian? No, but it means that I'm a mutt like everybody or like a lot of people, and that's pretty damn cool. So less claims and more curiosity and more connection.
Less claim and more curiosity, and that's why I said y'all will sit up here and deny the European that at your job. I'm not related to him. We don't share the same. Yes, y'all. You actually fucking do. You actually have a real relatedness with a damn European at your job or a white American at your job. You got way more in common with that motherfucker than you would ever do with an ancient Egyptian. That's on the different another side of the goddamn continent that your ancestors didn't come from. You got West European ancestry. You actually do descend from Western Europeans, motherfucker. But you can't accept reality, motherfucker. So you got to make up this cartoon ass shit or inherit the cartoon ass shit from Diop, from Old Banga, from Renuka Rashidi, Dr. Jane Smalls, Dr. Bean, and all these other clowns.
Everyone's gearing up for the holidays.
Instead of the claim, this is mine and not yours, it's more like, oh my God, look at how we're all connected in this world. And that's the anti-patriarchal movement that I'd like to be a part of.
All right, go ahead. Oh, okay, here we go. I can tell some problems right now. So you said a few things that most people can't even put together in their mind. So I would like to say this. When you say to me that based off of American standards, I automatically say, well, that's colonizing standards. That was the standard set by colonizers.
Yeah.
You see that? Why he didn't play that part? Why I didn't play that part? The negative connotation. She said, yep, that's what she was saying. How do we know this? We sat up there and watched the first 13 fucking minutes when she explained that shit. He took a little clip, took it out of context, like, I gotcha. That's what these niggas do, man. That's what these niggas do. You niggas are terrible. You niggas are terrible, man. But anyway, up-to-date science shows everything that these dudes are saying is fucking false. And let's go back to my genetic discontinuity PowerPoint here that I used to spank Ruben's ass. Anyway, we brought up the differentiation between North African male lineages and Sub-Saharan African lineages. Show me all these damn North African lineages in Sub-Saharan Africa. We don't see it. We don't see it in great numbers, but we see it in North Africa at great numbers, right? Again, back to Africa, gene flow, North Africans, what we call the North African autochthonous genomic component, likely derived from a back to Africa gene flow older than 12,000 years ago. And there's the paper right there. We quote sources over here. You motherfuckers don't. You go in there and gish gallop and make shit up and distort motherfucking people like you distorted Cooney. North African populations carry the signature admixture with Neanderthals, and that's Sanchez Quinto in all 2012. Mitochondrial N being found in Egyptians. Again, that points to ancient Egyptians had more in common with the people in the Middle East. That's a paper from 2020, Paleogenetic Study of Ancient Mummies of the Kirkatov Institute. Easy work, man. There's plenty of sources that say this. Y chromosome haplogroups make it possible to access the paternal line of the investigated remains. One of the haplogroups, and there it is there, E1B1B, identified in the study, was previously described by large-scale genetic analysis of mummies of the pre-Ptolemaic, and Roman periods, which showed deep genetic relationships between ancient Egyptians and the people of the Near East. Again, and there's that haplogroup right there, EBY6800. And where do we see this haplogroup arising? Where do we see this male group arising? In Eurasia, outside of Africa. Haplogroup R1B1A1B isolated situation samples also uncharacteristic of the modern Egyptian population, and its frequency is a population less than 1%, while it's found approximately half of the males population of Western Europe. In addition, these haplogroups were common in the Caucasus and Europe during the Iron Age, but we find this in an Egyptian 3,000 years ago. We also find it in King Tut. That's 18th dynasty. That's 18th dynasty. Now we're talking 3,500 years ago. Thus, genetic analysis confirmed that these mummies belong to the Mediterranean anthropological type, as well as the conclusion of the chronological analysis about their origin from different areas. The same paper. Egyptian and Libyans show the highest proportion of Caucasus-Iran component. In agreement with their geographical proximity to Southwest Asia, a high F3 value is also estimated for the KEB population. And this is in Morocco, your people in Morocco. In contrast to the lower estimated values found for Tafarat in the IAM, also Ibero-Mauritanians in Morocco, suggesting that this component might have entered North Africa during the late Neolithic, coming from Iran, and may have been posteriorly diluted in Western North Africa. So again, the component we see in Egyptians and Libyans, this Caucasus-Iranian component, right, is as old as the post-Neolithic period coming from Iran. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. This is why we got the Old Kingdom Egyptian with 20% Mesopotamian DNA. This is why ancient Egyptians had the potter wheel. And we know the potter wheel came from Mesopotamia. And why they had lapis lazuli. And we know that came from Afghanistan, you fucking clowns. Eurasian back migration into Northeast Africa was a complex and multifaceted process. Hamilton et al. 2023. Our results confirm that gene flow in the area coming from surrounding regions such as Europe, the Middle East, or Sub-Saharan Africa did not completely erase the ancient background of autochthonous North Africans in the last 15,000 years. This Paleolithic autochthonous genetic component might correlate with the Maghrebi component as a result of a back to Africa gene flow defined by its presence is not distributed following a uniform pattern in the area. So again, North Africans, the autochthonous component, right, came back into Africa from West Asia about 15,000 years ago. This is why North Africa is genetically different than Sub-Saharan Africa. Eurasian back migration into Northeast Africa. We sourced up over here. Fuck wrong with these niggas. Model B shows North African population splitting from the Middle East in a back to Africa movement. This is a model mostly supported in previous analysis by population structure and admixture F3 approaches. So again, North Africans, this is the mostly supported in previous analysis. So this is what they're coming up with. This model has the greatest support that North Africans literally split from Middle Eastern populations. They split off from Middle Eastern populations and moved back into Africa. That's how you get your North Africans. Modeling the demographic history of human North African genomes point to a recent soft split divergence between populations. What is the divergence here? Between North Africans and Middle Easterners. The earliest herders with their livestock entered Africa probably along the Sinai. I'm going to read that again. The earliest herders with their livestock. This is why the livestock that we see in Africa is largely from the Levant. All of the goats and sheep have their origin in the Levant. Matter of fact, there was a recent paper on that. If I can just pull that up. If I can just pull it up real quick. Let me go to my groups real quick. Let me sidebar for a minute here. Let me go to my handy dandy group here. Let me type in goats. Pull it up real quick. Post from me. And right here. West African caprines, which are goats, right? West African caprines originate outside of Africa. Gene flow from outside of Africa made its way into Africa during the Green Sahara. And there's the paper here, the origin of domestication genes in goats. So we even did the genetic analysis. When I say we were talking about humans in general, but the scientists, of course, or the experts. They did the genetic analysis of goats, and it was domesticated approximately 11,000 years ago. And look, the Near East. And then it makes its way from the Near East into Africa. So these are your herders going down the Sinai Peninsula into Egypt, into the rest of North Africa. Recent scholarship, by the way. Here's the dispersal route for the goats or the caprines. Obviously, they have their origin outside of Africa. Up-to-date scholarship, something these niggas don't know nothing about. VM. Fuck wrong with niggas, man. Niggas is goofy. The earliest herders with their livestock entered Africa probably along the Sinai and the Red Sea routes, after which they rapidly spread into northeastern Africa and reached the Central Sahara around 8,300 years ago. We already showed you the direction that these damn domesticates, the animal domesticates, are coming from. By 6,400 years ago, further gene flow occurred with the appearance of ancestry associated with Neolithic groups from the Levant, whose archaeological signatures are visible in the Eastern Sahara. That's Egypt, that's Libya. Ancient DNA from the Green Sahara reveals ancestral North African lineage. 2025 right there. Brand new paper right out the press. Eurasian DNA in southern Egypt. Remember, they tell you go to southern Egypt. Oh, that's where all the black people are. Southern Egypt. Go to southern Egypt. The modern distribution of H4A1 is rare and sporadic and has been identified in areas including the Canary Islands, southern Iberia, and Lebanon. H4A1 has also been reported in ancient samples from Bell Beaker and the Unitized context in Germany, as well as Bronze Age Bulgaria. Now, that's all European. That's all European. We believe that this is an important finding because first, it adds to the depth of knowledge about the distribution of the H4A1 haplogroup and existing mitochondrial DNA, thus creating a baseline for future occurrences of this haplogroup in ancient Egyptian remains. Second is of the great importance for the archaeological sciences, since a predominantly European haplogroup has been identified in an Egyptian individual in southern Europe, Egypt, prior to the Roman and Greek influx, 332 BC. So it's older than the Roman and Greek, so you can't blame them. But we see H4A1, which was found in the Bell Beaker culture, the Unitized culture in Germany, and the Bronze Age Bulgaria, that's Central Europe. We find it in southern Egypt, where y'all say, oh, that's the blackest part right there. You got to go to southern Egypt. That's what you morons say. And it said the first reported case of the rare mitochondrial haplotype H4A1 in ancient Egypt. So we had some European women in ancient Egypt, or Eurasian women. Egypt is a gateway to the Middle East. This is what you dumbasses don't get. And it's what Cooney was telling you. Maybe you should have clipped that, idiot. The overall perspective from an examination of 97 samples from ancient Egypt with a mitochondrial haplogroup is of a complicated society with a rich mixture of established genetic backgrounds. That's what she was telling you. They were heavily mixed, indicative of a population shaped over time by migration into the region. This is perhaps not surprising, since Egypt is situated at the only land gateway between Africa and the Middle East, a region known to have been populated through the centuries by nomadic tribes and rich trading routes. As the record currently stands, these are represented by mitochondrial U, M1A1 haplogroups throughout the first and second millennium BCE, expanded by J2A, R0, T1, T2, HV, and I in the first millennium BCE. So we're talking about 4,000 years of history. It says superimposed on this are individuals like the Takabuti with rare haplogroups which have not been previously identified in the background. Like Takabuti, and that's the one with H4A1. And again, that same paper. The origin of haplogroup A, for anyone that doubted it, is clearly European. You can see here. That's the blue line here. clearly European, and we find it in the southern ancient Egyptian before the Greeks and Romans. Now, here's the biological section of a 4,000-year-old Egyptian mummy head to assess the potential of nuclear DNA recovery from most damages and limited forensic specimens. This is the Jehudi-Nat sequence. So Jehudi-Nat sequence is also compared to available ancient DNA sequences. Not surprisingly, no direct matches to the Jehudi-Nat sequence have been reported. However, related U5B2B sequences have been observed in ancient human remains from Europe. And the haplogroup U5B2C1 haplotype was recently discovered in a 2,000-year-old remain from Phoenicia. When only the mtDNA sequences recovered from ancient Egyptian human remains are considered, the Jehudi-Nat sequence most closely resembles U5A lineage from sample JK2903, a 2,000-year-old skeleton from Abusar el-Malek. This Jehudi-Nat sample is 4,000 years old. Why does it have a European sample? And where do we find this? Where do we find this sample at as well? In Upper Egypt. Where y'all say, that's where all the niggas at. You got to go to Upper Egypt. And here's the slide explaining that it was an Upper Egyptian that had the U5 mitochondrial DNA signature. We also found in 2025 that the U5 mitochondrial signature was found in, I believe, Libya or Tunisia. So these women were present. And that was 6,000 years ago. It says on top of the historical information offering an explanation for the observed mtDNA data are now additional. Recently published mitochondrial genomes from Africa and Egypt in particular. Mitochondrial DNA haplotypes recently obtained from ancient human remains from sub-Saharan Africa belong only to the L haplogroups. However, nearly all the remains excavated in northern part of the continent belong to Eurasian mitochondrial DNA lineage, so Eurasian women. In fact, of the 114 mitochondrial DNA genomes now available from northern African ancient human remains, only one belongs to an African lineage. And that's the L3 observed in the skeleton from Abusar el-Malek. The deep presence of Eurasian mitochondrial DNA lineages in northern Africa has therefore been clearly established with these recent reports and offers further support for the authenticity of the Eurasian mitochondrial DNA sequence observed in the Jehudi-Nat mummy. In the present study, Near Eastern influence has been found in an individual of high social status who lived in Upper Egypt during the Middle Kingdom. You know, that region, that portion of Egypt that you motherfuckers claimed. Well, this is where we're going to find all the sub-Saharan African DNA. Y'all focus on Schumann. There's more fucking papers than Schumann. Maybe if you read these fucking papers. No, just shut the fuck up. You don't even fucking read this. I don't even know why I'm going down that rabbit hole. More evidence of a genetic discontinuity. As you can see, when the mummy's mtDNA sequence is viewed in the context of modern mitochondrial DNA diversity, however, the observed U5 lineage could potentially reflect interactions between Egypt and the Near East that date as far back as the pre-dynastic and early dynastic periods. Trade between Egypt and the Near East is evidenced by, among other things, ceramic imports to Egypt. In addition, dwellings similar to those found in Palestine suggest some immigration to Egypt from more arid Near Eastern areas from the late pre-dynastic to the Old Kingdom. Both trade and immigration between Egypt and the Near East continued to increase over time, demanding Egypt for cedar of Lebanon wood, of wood available and harvested in Lebanon and Syria during the Middle Kingdom, led to further establishment of trade routes between Egypt and the Levant. It is interesting and perhaps not coincidental that the individual mtDNA sequence most similar to Jehudi-Nat comes from a Lebanese individual. These people were vacillating both sides, Africa and West Asia, going back and forth, back and forth. Another ancient sample of mtDNA U5 in ancient North Africa. As you guys can see here, this is the individual DEK2, which carried mtDNA haplogroup U5B2B1, which is characteristic of pre-Neolithic Europe and is probably derived from European hunter-gatherers, either directly or by means of West hunter-gatherer ancestry European farmers. Hunter-gatherers crossing the Strait of Sicily. There's a high continuity of forager ancestry in Neolithic period of the Eastern Maghreb. 2025, hot off the press. So again, these Eurasians are in Egypt. Where is haplogroup U associated with? Where did it have its origin? Where did these women developed this mitochondrial DNA signature. In Europe, clearly this being found in ancient Tunisia is a clear sign that these people migrated back into Africa. This is why North Africa is genetically distinct from Southern or Sub-Saharan Africa. This is why we find it in Upper Egypt 4,000 years ago. Here's family tree DNA on haplogroup H in the 12th dynasty of Egypt. In the 12th dynasty of Egypt. There you go, Nak-Unk. A 12th dynasty priest in ancient Egypt was buried in the tomb of two brothers. And again, he had mitochondrial haplogroup HZ19008. This is where it's dated. Okay, this is also about 4,000 years ago. What the fuck is this European-like DNA doing in Europe? In the tomb of the two brothers. Obviously, your story is not adding up. We don't find anything to corroborate your fucking bullshit ass Diop racialized damn story. Anyway, here's the Goyet man. That shares that ancestry. Mitochondrial haplogroup M, which we also found. Goyet is found in Belgium. M1 again was found in the Nak-Unk brothers, the tomb of the two brothers, and we know M1 ultimately has its origin outside of Africa. And this is when we go into that paper, the neuron. This is the basically the thesis, because we didn't have the paper at that time, and it just goes over the preliminary findings here of how these people are West Asian. But it also said these results confirm the contact with the Levant existed in Egypt at least 4,000 years ago. The exact contact date needs to be confirmed by older DNA from Egypt. Several cultural and biological contacts with the Levant were recorded through time by archaeologists. First, the migration could be recent, dating from the beginning of the Neolithic, 5,500 BCE. This is 7,000 years ago, when the Nile Valley was repopulated by a people bringing agriculture. Literally what it says here. It's also hypothesized that herders from the Western Desert repopulated the Nile Valley earlier than the Levantines. Based on dental morphology, iris showed the Neolithic Western Desert inhabitants are weakly similar to pre-dynastic Egyptians, the Badarian culture, who themselves show continuity with Old Kingdom Egyptians. He suggested that either the source of the Western Desert people was more to the north, or that the Nile Valley inhabitants emerged from multiple populations, the Levant and the Eastern Desert. DNA from Western Desert people would be extremely valuable to directly test for admixture with Levantine populations. Second, the Natufian-related ancestors could have resulted from older migration during the Paleolithic. In Morocco, researchers have found that Natufian ancestry was not only associated with neolization there, but was already present 15,000 years ago. Under this hypothesis, Neolithic Western Desert inhabitants could have been related to the Levantine population and be the sole people repopulating the Nile Valley. Neurot 01 is located close to present-day individuals living in the Arabian Peninsula and Northeast Africa. So the ancient Egyptians related to modern Egyptians and their Arabs. The ancient individuals from Egypt dated to the Old Kingdom, the Third Intermediate Period, and Ptolemaic period all fit the Levant, Iran, Caucasus, Klein. Neurot 001 shows genetic affinities with both Epi-Paleolithic and Neolithic groups from the Levant. The samples dated to the Third Intermediate Period and Ptolemaic periods fit the Levant Neolithic cluster, suggesting an increase of Anatolian or Caucasian Iranian-related ancestry. And the papers to the right. Haplogroup I, E1B1B, clearly Eurasian influence here. King Tut's clearly of Eurasian influence. He's of haplogroup R. That is a non-African originating haplogroup. These men came from outside of Africa into Africa. Says, do you fall on YDNR haplogroup RM343? If so, you share a paternal haplogroup ancestor with King Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut. In the Mesrine tapestry of ancient Egyptian royalty, King Tutankhamun, or King Tut, emerges as a luminary figure. His reign glided with mystique. Tutankhamun, affectionately known as King Tut, ascended the throne in the midst of the opulent 18th dynasty. Y'all get the point. There's a paper to the right. R1b is clearly Eurasian. It has its origin outside of Africa, and as you can see, it has descendant branches that go into Africa. People migrating back into Africa. Haplogroup G, Yuya from Egypt is from haplogroup G. These are men that have their origin outside of Africa. Now let's get into the next paper. These early introductory narratives sometimes also consider packages or combinations of species moving together into the Sahara, such as cattle, caprines, and possibly dogs, which arrived first in Egypt from the Levant and then spread gradually reaching the western and eventually southern regions of the African continent. So again, goats and certain cattle and possibly dogs come from the Levant into Egypt, into the rest of Africa. In sub-Saharan West Africa, archaeological data for periods preceding the arrival of the first animal domesticates in the second half of the 3rd millennium BC are limited. Animals were moving in the company of people, and that's what's killing all of these EGYPTOMANIACs, Afrocentrics. To have these animal domestics, you need people that have the know-how to train and raise these animals, and feed these animals, and care for these animals. The source is at the bottom here. Mobile technology in ancient Sahara and beyond. The introduction of domestic species to new areas require human-driven relocation of animals to unfamiliar environments. Same source. There are several possible paths of introduction for domestic species brought into North and West Africa. For the early phases, 6 to 1st millennium BC, the dominant idea is that translocation of most domestic animals and many domestic plants originated from the Levant. With most species entering Africa first through the modern Egypt. Nigga had the nerve, show me the source. Here's the fucking sources. You don't fucking read them. The movement of domestic species is thus subsumed by the movement of humans. You need humans to bring forth domestic species, because if they're not aided by humans, then they're fucking wild animals, not domestic. Now, are they? Figs and olives, whose domestication had started in the Levant during the late Chalcolithic, this is the copper period, we're talking more than 6,000 years ago, had already reached Egypt in the oasis of its western desert in the early kingdom. That is about 3000 BCE. So we see figs and olives, crop cultivation here, plant cultivation, being brought into Egypt during this time. It could have reached Fasan together with the date palm. All these things come from the Levant, same source. In Oriental origins, widely assumed with a consensus that the Fogara derived from the Near Eastern Qanat, and that their diffusion followed the route from Iran to the Levant to the Egyptian oasis, and finally Fasan, and later also to the northern and western Sahara. Fogara is pretty much irrigation techniques. We know that did originate outside of Africa. Again, here's the shared genetic drift and affinity with the Takakori genomes. As you can see, the northern Sudan Kudruka sample in which is about 4,000 years ago, and the Schumann et al. 3 mummy samples all match with Near Eastern samples. It says here in the ancient DNA from the Green Sahara reveals the ancestral North African lineage. It says we next explored the direct genetic affinity between the Takakori and out of African ancestry found in all non-African humans, in contrast to African groups. For this, we computed F4 statistics of the form F4. Slotty Kuhn, a 45,000-year-old upper Paleolithic individual from Czechia, was used as a proxy for out of African ancestry, as it's probably the oldest modern human sequence to date and represents the deepest known human lineage after the out of African lineage splits from the African lineage. Our results show positive values for Takakori, indicating that it's genetically closer to Slotty Kuhn than to a sub-Saharan African, including more than 4,500-year-old genome from East Africa. Why is this important? Because Takakori are isolated North African groups, and they cluster. These two women cluster towards Slotty Kuhn, which is a damn human from Czechia. And this is in Western Libya, by the way. This unknown North African population is closely related to out of African populations and branches off the lineage leading to out of Africa later than the ancient individual Moldecave in the Molda Cave, Ethiopia, who represent the sub-Saharan African lineage most closely related to out of African groups identified so far. And I model the remaining Takakori individual ancestry. The 7% is derived from a deeply ancient Levantine source, showing you that Levantine people were penetrating into Africa and making it as far as Western Libya. Because how else would they have 7% Levantine DNA? Meaning they are descendant of Levantine migrant groups, which just kills the Afrocentric argument. Ancient DNA from the Green Sahara reveals ancestral North African lineage. not Salem at all in 2025. The affinity to the Middle East finds further support by the Y chromosome haplogroups of the 3 individuals of which genome-wide data was obtained, 2 of which could be assigned to the Middle Eastern haplogroup J and 1 to the haplogroup E1B1B1, common in North Africa. Further supports these results and reveals that the 3 ancient Egyptians differ from modern Egyptians by a relatively larger Near Eastern genetic component, in particular a component found in Neolithic Levantine and ancient individuals. And now that's Schumann et al. 2017. The current distribution of E1B1 in North Africa can also be caused by a back migration from the Near East to Africa that have already been proposed by several authors. Same book, same paper. And that was the end of my presentation there in the mortuary services. I don't think there's any need for me to continue going over this video. I showed you distorting Cooney, not representing Cooney. She basically was bringing out that ancient Egypt has been mixing for a long time, right? And it was on the crossroads of Mediterranean and West Asian and Africa. So you should expect them to be highly admixed. Your American perception of mixed people fitting into the black box is why you call them black. And that's what she brought that up. But you, being a damn Supreme Suit, did what Supreme Suits do best. And that's fucking distort, lie, and twist. And that's the motherfucking deal. I have no more words for these fucking suits tonight. Oh, you cuss too much. Go watch somebody. Go watch them. Go be beguiled by them. But if you want to learn, if you want to get the source material, come fuck with me. Go fuck with them if you want to be a fucking dummy. And with that being said, I'm going to leave y'all with that, man. I ain't come here to be nice. I came up here to slice. So, let me open up my handy dandy Facebook Messenger. Let's get this song popping. Yap. More, you caught the tail end of this. I'm about to get out of this. You know, laid the smackdown again on Jabari and Sekou and Smash Rockwell and all the Egyptomaniacs. It is very clear that they distort information all the goddamn time. VM. Fuck the ops, nigga. And with that being stated, we out. Niggas talking about some, we for black. No, you're not. You for lying and distorting information and beguiling black people. That's what you're doing. You ain't no goddamn Egyptian, you goofy. Niggas is major goofy, man. VM!
Yeah. Told y'all. I'm playing with y'all. I'm playing y'all pseudos. Always the same shit. Pseudo killers. Slide on the pseudo any day of the week. Got them running scared, demonstrating their weak. Turning up the pressure, now they feeling the heat. I'm stopping all these niggas, man, call it a feat. I got my Nike song, I run these YouTube streets. I'm racking up the bodies, man, one at a time. I leave a bloody mess at the scene of the crime. Hunting through the blood, I'm always on my grind. Call me single love, got one thing on my mind. Die, single die, single die, single die. Nowhere to run, you got nowhere to hide. Die, single die, single die, single die. Ain't leaving no shells, don't need no alibi. Die, single die, single die, single die. I can see the fear hiding in your eye. Science is undefeated and we standing tall. Crushing all the scammers, building narrative wall. All that thin flaming, what's wrong with y'all? Swing my battle axe and we watch them fall. I leave them busted, battered and bruised. Crushing fragile egos, they call it abuse. I'm putting belt to ass, it's like you're born to lose. You're about to pop a vessel, about to blow a fuse. Your niggas always thinking, but I'm never confused. I'm hunting through the blood, I'm always on my grind. Call me single love, got one thing on my mind. Die, so die, so die, so die. Nowhere to run, you got nowhere to hide. Die, so die, so die, so die. Ain't leaving no shells, don't need no alibi. Die, so die, so die, so die. I can see the fear hiding in your eye. I see y'all are hating, it's fine by me. You pseudo-laying scammers are my enemies. All the misinformation is a tragedy. Now I'm in them garden pulling up the weeds. Y'all be the sickness like a fucking disease. I'm a pseudo-killer nigga, got the remedy. So I do this for fun, completely for free. But watch it through the die, it's joy for me. So I'm always through the hunt and I'm always on the ride. Call me single luck, I want to think on my mind. Die, super die, super die, super die. Where to run, you got the where to hide. Die, super die, super die, super die. Ain't leaving no shelf, don't need no alibi. Die, super die, super die, super die. I can see the fear hiding in your eyes. Y'all just ain't ready to deal with a pseudo killer nigga. You gotta come with all your flim flam, bullshit, narratives, get crushed every time. Stomping on you niggas every time.